Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 75 and the start of our Path of Daggers. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined as always by my fashion-obsessed friends Willie.
The Path of Daggers?
Yes, and Jody.
Buongiorno, Pepe.
You could have gone the Path of Daggers, and then we could have seen like it all went in line. But he's not good at impromptu.
No.
What's it called?
I wasn't even listening to what you guys were saying.
Improvising. Can you guys tear your minds away from silks, lace, and the cut of your favorite riding dress so we can set the scene for book 8 of the Wheel of Time?
Please do. Please tear my mind away from all those words.
Look, I am folding my arms beneath my breasts.
He really is.
But I shall unfold them now. I wouldn't want to distract you guys.
I'm going to step into the cliche trap as well because the story I've told many times on this podcast is my first interaction with this book at Plet Rage, you know, like your end of school party. And this I bought in the bookstore right next to the bottle store where we bought cases and cases of beer and hard liquor. And as everyone went to go party, I went to the room to go read quickly. So this book for me is always reminiscent of Plettenberg Bay, end of school partying.
Nerd.
Yeah, guilty as charged. I also feel, and we have said this before, that for me, personally, this is the start of the slog. The slog.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I'm aware of the slog
You
of which
familiar?
you speak.
Yes.
But I don't recall, the only book I ever have in my vague, patchy memories of reading is book 10 being a slog. I don't remember a series of books, but 10 was hard for me.
Look, this was the first one that I had to wait for. Like I said in the last episode, when I read all the way through to the end of Crown of Swords and everything was there at my fingertips. And then I waited for, it was more than a year for this book. So I was super excited to the extent that I put my social life aside, right? And didn't even start partying to go read this because I was so excited about it. And I mean, it was going to be hard for any book to sort of live up to the expectations, right? So it was always, they had the odds stacked against it. I remember even seeing it the first time. It is significantly smaller than most of the books in the series, right? It's actually quite a narrow.
I wanted to bring that up, yeah.
Yeah. So even when you see it, you're like, oh, finally I've got this book. Oh, why is it so small? Oh,
yeah. Tiny one. It's only fantasy readers that think that. Like other people are like, oh, that's a small book.
Yes.
I'm glad. And then we're like, oh,
yes.
it's only 700 pages. Oh.
Immediately I felt a very small but some sense of disappointment, right? And then like I said, this to me, I remember this being part of the slog. So we will see now whether that holds true or not for all the reasons that we've spewed forth here ad nauseum. What I can say, since we're only covering 2 chapters tonight, I actually really enjoyed this. Like, there's a lot of cool lore and stuff buried in just this introduction. And the second half of it is actually pretty fucking great. With the hindsight of the whole series, obviously, all the Verin stuff, like knowing what you know about Verin now, reading this section about Verin was really, really interesting. So let's get to it, I guess. We don't want to dilly-dally anymore. So let's dive then face first into everyone's favorite section called Callbacks. So, in our last episode, the Crown of Swords finale, I got so caught up in finale talk, I didn't do any of our plugs for for getting in touch with us or anything like that. But I know that's why everyone arrives, right? That's why everyone's here, to hear me blather on about our Twitter handle and email address. We spoke about how long it's taken us to get halfway through the series. I think we all sort of were talking about 2.5 years, so it should take us about 5 years to do the whole thing. Willie, your guess exactly was 2 years, 5 months, and 23 days that you just sort of pulled out of thin air. We were so wrong. It's been 3.5 years.
What?
Oh, shit.
Yes. We've been doing this for a whole year longer than we thought. That means this is going to be a 7-year project, not a 5-year.
Wow, we really mathed that. We can't remember dates. We can't remember math. We're real fathers now. We're dads.
Yeah, and notoriously bad with dates, I Unless, of course, I've now in the callbacks done the maths wrong. So everybody, when did we start this? June of 2020? Yeah, it was COVID time, shortly after the start of COVID.
Yes.
So if it's the end of 2023, it's got to be 3.5 years. Look at that. Then we were talking about when did book 9, Villy's first Wheel of Time book, being Winter's Heart, was published in the year 2000. I bought Path of Daggers in December of 1998, my last year of school. We'll never forget that one. I also referenced a movie called The Fog after I think maybe, I'm going to drop Gerald in the shit here now. I think Gerald or someone else made a reference to The Fog. When I spoke about the riot and tent attack and all the sort of the, all the stuff that happened with that fog, but I had it confused with a movie called The Mist. You can understand the confusion, right?
No, we will not forgive you, Moritz.
That's the...
Oh, shit,
sorry.
Damn. I thought I could get away with that one.
No.
That song.
That song. 2 wise ones have named it that song now, so sorry.
Oh, I guess
It's
I'll name
official.
myself. That was the one in which there were huge creatures inside the mist. I don't know if you remember that movie at all, Joe.
I do.
I think that the ending. Okay, I won't spoil the Mist. Everybody go watch the Mist. It's pretty cool.
No,
It's got a cool ending.
I was thinking about this very movie probably last week because of what you said. And that ending is one of the most hectic endings in any movie.
It is. Hey, yeah, it got me. It was good. Then we were talking, Villy, about Alviarin's motives for confronting Elayne with the Dumas Wells news. You were saying, Alviarin might be thinking, shit, I better get this out before news gets out because I could get dragged down with Elayne, much like Leanne did with Swan. I went hunting around. I cannot find a single reason why Leanne was also stilled with Swan. Like they just assumed that she was in with it. That she was in with the whole plan with Moiraine and Swan, which she obviously wasn't. But back to Alviarin. 5 Argers had already told Alviarin about Rand and his disappearance. So it's already quite known, if only at high level. So the Arger heads, the recipients of the Eyes and Ears news, but 5 Argers had brought Alviarin the news about the stuff that had gone down with Rand.
Yeah.
And Elayne was still in the dark. So it's actually kind of known already. She initially thinks she may be in trouble if Elayne figures out that the other Argers had already brought the news to the tower and Alviarin had held out on her. But then she thinks to herself that she is safe thanks to the hold she now has over Elayne and because of Missana's patronage, which, Jody, you called out in the previous episode, is not probably as great a protection or a blessing as you might think it is.
No. You don't want to be on their radar.
No. But then she thinks to herself, Elayne is finished, that she will suffer the same fate as Swan, but Alviarin does not feel threatened by this eventuality at all. In fact, Alviarin at this point even thinks that she will wear the stole and the stole of the Amyrlin herself at some point. And then, like I said, can't find any reference to why Leanne was also stilled. She was sent out of the room in the Great Hunt when Rand meets with Swan. Remember, Verin is there, Verin, Moiraine, and Swan. She sends Leanne out of the room. So Leanne at that point knows nothing. And during their escape from the tower, she gets cross with Swan and she asks her, you still intend to support this dragon? Like with ellipses and italics, she's really put out by this. So I think it was just that she got swept up in the whole thing, probably purely because she was sitting in the room outside of Swan's office. So, they came in, they killed Elric right outside of Swan's office, her warder, and Leanne was sitting there and they just bound her. When Swan sees her, she's bound with air, she's shielded. They just throw her in the cells, they still her with Swan. They just absolutely had nothing to go on and just stilled her.
Yo, wrong place at the wrong time, eh?
Yeah, quite. And then, Vil, you mentioned that the Keeper is supposed to probably be like some kind of balance to the Amyrlin just to keep her power in check. And I think that function is primarily executed by the Hall, right? It's always the Amyrlin versus the Hall. Like you have in, American politics, you've got, Parliament and the President and then whoever else. There's a third, the Supreme Court. That's the third leg. They're all supposed to keep each other in balance.
I think it's Congress, not Parliament for the...
Yeah, sorry, I come from a republic. Yes.
What's a Senate then? See, politics. Got it.
Let's not dive
Science.
into that. But
Magic.
yes,
Burn, Marts.
it's the Hall that is supposed to keep the
counterbalance,
Amyrlin in
okay.
check. Then we asked, so when David Hanlon goes back to the palace in Cairhien to work as a guard called Doylan Mellar, did nobody recognize him?
No. Magic.
I guess not. My note here is just we didn't really talk about this, but we need to keep our eyes open and like see if any of the other guards or like anyone else, because he was there, he was prominent. But yeah, no one says anything that I can remember, and that means nothing.
Unless he's really good in disguises. Like, not everyone is as bad as Nynaeve.
Like it's the taped
like,
moustache.
No one can recognize me.
Then we had a robust discussion about Matt's medallion and the effect of Sidin on the medallion. We should know that Sidin doesn't work on Matt's foxhead medallion because Halima tried to channel at him in Saladar, and she looked at him with a face of shock when it went really cold. Okay. So we know that. And then I also wanted to add in that I believe it would, in fact, nullify Balefire, that Balefire would not be able to do anything against Matt because, if you recall, and you probably don't, later in the series, like very much towards the end, could even be Memory of Light, I don't remember where, Perrin is in the Wolf Dream with Egwene and someone shoots Balefire at them and Perrin just changes the direction of the Balefire. And when Egwene looks at him like, how the fuck did you do that? He looks at her and he goes, it's just a weave. He just plays it down, and he just altered the reality in which the weave went in a different direction. So, I mean, I believe any weave channeled at Matt would dissipate, and therefore Balefire would not be able to hit him or the medallion.
It's not an object. It is still itself magic beam that has to
made of little magic threads.
Alter. Yes.
Yes. That's my
magic string theory. Gotcha.
Yeah. Then the bargain between Nynaeve, Elayne, Merrilil, and the Sea Folk comes up a lot. So let's just lay it all out there. This is exactly what it was. The Atha and Mir agree to give Elayne and Nynaeve the assistance of their Windfinders in using the Bowl of the Winds to correct the world's weather. Cool. First task completed for Nynaeve and co, right? That's exactly what they wanted.
They haven't done it yet.
No, at this point they haven't. Yeah. But it's been mentioned in the previous book and now, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page because there's a lot of chapters actually coming up beyond this episode in which they're just riding along and shooting daggers at each other, and they just... Everyone's all got their feathers ruffled about this deal. So the second part of it is that the Atha and Mir agreed to let the Aes Sedai use their most powerful Windfinders instead of the ones of highest ranking, which is why you see the two little novices, the little trainee Windfinders, also tagging along. Matt notices them and says they have no business being with these guys, but they're obviously strong in the power, so that's why they've come along. The Aes Sedai agreed to provide 20 teachers to the Windfinders to enhance their knowledge of the power, and these 20 will be unable to leave unless replaced by others. So this is 20 Aes Sedai going to the Sea Folk. Yeah. And there will always be 20 of them there. Like there can't be 19 and there has to be 21 before they can be 20 again. Like that sort of thing.
Martz has worked out the minutiae of the plan.
The pedantry runs strong.
I'm making notes here. Like this is great stuff. Like, wow.
I'm taking notes during the recording.
Okay, then... Part 4 of the deal. The Aes Sedai agree to let the channelers of the Atha and Mir come to the tower whenever they wish, learn whatever they wish, and leave whenever they wish.
Ooh. That doesn't seem fair.
That's not right with the enrollment tuition costs that's got to be paid.
Merrilil and co do not enjoy this aspect of it, and it comes up in the chapters after this episode. And then the final part 5 of this deal, is after the use of... the Bowl of the Winds, Renail Dinkalon claims the Bowl of the Winds as part of the bargain between the Sea Folk and the Aes Sedai. So now, after they use it to fix the weather, the Windfinders take it. So, pretty shitty deal. Pretty shitty deal from Nynaeve.
Yeah.
Wow. No wonder Matt was so commenty about the deal. That was really a terrible deal.
But the best thing is, he had no idea what the deal was. He just took a gamble and he hit the mark because Nynaeve was like, oh, shit, yeah. Not bad shooting in the dark. Then the bilge is in fact the very bottom of the boat, a position where ballast is often placed for stability. So a bilge stone would be ballast.
Isn't Jack Donaghy's cologne made from the bilge water of Rupert Murdoch's yacht?
Something like that.
That was a great line.
Yes.
If you haven't watched 30 Rock, people, go watch 30 Rock.
Oh my God, that's great.
Oh, that's nonstop quality. Then According to the Wheel of Time timeline, the one that we reference all the time, Samael is killed 2 days after the wall falls on Mat.
I've got another timeline issue coming up in my chapter, but we'll get to that. 2 days?
Because Rand is... Yeah, I was going to say Rand is knocked out for 2 days, but that's before he goes to kill Samael. But anyway,
Indeed.
that's what this trustworthy timeline of ours that we keep going to has stated.
Yeah, the 8 days feel a little short now that I reflect on all the comings and goings of this book, the previous one.
Well, there are numerous mentions. We're going back to this is callback, so this is the place to do it. But there are mentions of like earlier this morning when they returned from the Rahad and that sort of stuff. Like a lot of the stuff is happening really, really quickly. Like, it's also the festival of the Feast of the Birds or the Festival of the Birds, and then the Festival of the Embers and stuff. There are days in a row, and each day, that the action sort of went down is following straight on the previous. So even in the beginning of this book, like these chapters we're reading now, and then for a few chapters on, is also like immediately after. Like we still read in chapters coming up that we haven't covered yet, even in tonight's episode, how they're busy loading up the wagons and getting ready to depart from the Tarazin Palace. The Seanchan have already attacked, and Mat's there, but there's no mention of these guys sensing channeling, seeing Toreken in the air yet or anything. So even in this book, it's still like right then.
Yeah, we haven't skipped a beat in terms of moving forward with the Mat.
No.
That scene right there. It's effectively, that's a book on its own, and the story's just running in. There wasn't an end there yet.
No, not at all. So all of that is to say, like with this timeline stuff, that I do think that I was talking, and I don't know if maybe I was unclear. It seemed unclear to me when I was listening back to the episode that the storm that Nynaeve senses coming, I was saying, is most likely the Seanchan, as we read in these chapters now as well. And the dice rattling in Mat's head are related to the Seanchan arriving, but it's not because of the Seanchan arriving necessarily. It's Mat getting trapped in Ibudar so that he is there when Tuon arrives so that they can meet. I think a lot of the dice rattling is about Mat either staying in Ibudar or getting out in time, which obviously he doesn't. Then, Vil, I couldn't find a reference to, Thorava, the wise one, that has it in for Galena. Where did you read about her running after Galena? Because you sort of made the connection that maybe she used to be a maiden, that she was sort of going after her. Because I went back and I read all those chapters, and there wasn't anything about her personally or physically.
She physically captured her. It says, and her just, I took her by the arm. It was her when she has a confrontation with Savannah about it, making her that song. She then says,
I'll go look at it again because I did go read
have a
that
look.
again.
It was because I was pretty certain, double checked as well. Like she's upset because it was her ownership, and it's a high society Cairhien to claim. Like she was going to put her in white silk.
Yes. What I did find is that she says to Savannah that she took her. It didn't say anything of like by the arm or anything like that, which could mean a couple of different things. But I mean, that's how Cairhien are taken, right? By being touched instead of stabbed with a weapon. Thorava, though, being a wise one, wouldn't even have had a weapon, and maybe uses some kind of wise one influence to also take some Cairhien, because I don't know if Cairhien are necessarily the Cairhien of the warrior that took them, or if they get clubbed together with all the Cairhien that were taken in that battle and then are dispersed, in which case the wise ones might go, okay, I'll take this one, I'll take that one, and spread them around.
Sounds like something the Aiel group you should know. Should maybe put a pin in that, find out.
No, I mean, the wise ones always have Cairhien in the tents, like in all the scenes.
Yes.
So, I mean, they're not warriors, so they must be getting their Cairhien somewhere.
From somewhere.
I suppose there's much G in donating your Cairhien to a wise one or something.
Probably. There's also talk of like how unnatural it is to have as many Cairhien as it is that I think Savannah has at some point. And, if you're a really good warrior, you'd probably also be racking up a little mini army of Cairhien as well if you're, regularly fighting in clan battles and stuff and touching people on the arm.
If you're touching people on the arm or stabbing them in the heart.
Sure.
Okay. sorry, dude, I have to stab you in the heart. I've got too many Cairhien at home. I would take you, but I have to kill you.
We'll recycle this one.
The quote.
Maybe that's a really good system if you think about it. Like, instead of killing all the warrior men and women out, and eventually there's no warrior blood left. So like, ooh, he's fighting really well. I should capture him. Maybe we could turn him in a year and a day. And all the time they never learn. Sometimes they turn.
I don't think so. Those Aiel are stubborn, if nothing else.
Oh, you never know. Water feuds have been solved with love and love angles and triangles and shit.
Have they?
I don't know. I'm just making shit up.
Clearly. Another thing I thought, Vil, is like maybe because when we last saw Galena before she was taken by the Shadow, was, you remember, immediately after the events of Dumai's Wells, and Galad spots an Aes Sedai with a fallen horse, and then he tries to get there, but they're attacked by a bunch of Shadow before he can get to her, and then when he looks up, she's gone. Now she's an Aes Sedai. Maybe Tharava is the one that shielded her, so she could be captured by the Shadow that actually take her. So maybe that's another way in which a wise one can quote unquote take. Because Galena would have just been ripping Shadow to pieces with fireballs and stuff. They'd need a wise one to shield her to be able to capture her.
Well, that was what I was going to say. Like, in the capturing of an Aes Sedai, it wasn't a physical run down and tackle to the ground, because this woman would be throwing fireballs. So you need to be able to manage her.
Yes. Then, in today's episode, we'll read about an Aes Sedai called Beldine. In the previous episode, I said that she was the one that tortured Rand. That was we were debating about whether she felt bad about it or not. It wasn't her. That was another Aes Sedai called Arian. Beldine was part of that group, though. We'll get to that when we read about Verin. Then Galena had helped break 2 Amelins, twice helped them turn the most powerful woman in the world into a squealing wretch, eager to tell all she knew. I think this is what threw me off, because I went back and I read it again, and I think it's pretty clear that it is Swan she's talking about, but I can't imagine Swan as a squealing wretch, eager to tell all she knew. But then again, this is from Galena's point of view.
Perspective.
This is her little narrative that she's told herself, right? The other one, by the way, was Tamra Ospenia, the Amelin seat when Rand was born and Gitara had the foretelling. That's the other Amelin that Galena had also broken, and I think actually staged her murder as a suicide or something. Then we asked whether Savannah or Tharava or anyone was heading back towards the waste. They were still planning on plundering the wetlands and stuff. So they hadn't planned to return to the waste yet. So this rendezvous in Kinslayer's Dagger was just to regroup. I think Savannah is too hell-bent on capturing Rand and making him her pet and marrying him and all that nonsense. But Tharava and Savannah are often at odds. And eventually when we do read the last of Galena's points of view or anything, it is after Perrin has freed Aiel, and Tharava takes Galena and the Shadow, and she goes back to the waste with them, because she then does go, no, fuck this wetland nonsense, we're going back to the waste.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at it on the map now, and yeah, just north of Cairhien, they can't just leave those tree killers unpunished and go back.
They got to take some
too much at stake. We're right here, we got to regroup and go south again, I imagine is their plan.
That's right.
At this stage, yeah.
It's just occurred to me that, in society that is strictly governed by the law that governs Aiel, you have to think about that there's bad apples in there that adhere to the law, but quietly they plot for years and years. Like, one day something will happen and I will have my window. We have a lot of those people coming out of the woodwork, like the savannas, and like just that little gap is what they needed to sprout the evil. Yeah. So everyone's waiting for their window. I hate
to admit it, there are Aiel Darkfriends, which sucks.
Shadow runners, or what do they call them?
Yeah.
No, all Darkfriends are shadow runners. So
yes, the Aiel
it's not just a Aiel shadow runner would be probably called a Datsang runner or something.
Datsang runner.
Speaking of unpronounceable Aiel slang, we spoke about Merrick and the Shadow and what were the brotherless called, and we sort of rattled off some of the Siswayaman namings and stuff. Yeah. So first, Merrick was Shadow. He led his own sept, the Moshane, as you said, Villy, and he actually had plans on going to Ruidian to become the Shadow clan chief someday. if some wise ones would support him. He also led the Shido Sayodun, the Black Eyes Warrior Society, who remained loyal to the Shido. He led that whole warrior society. Then
Bonnie Doon. I remember.
Yes, exactly. Then we got two of them right. The Algai de Siswai are the normal Aiel warriors, and that translates to dancers of the spear. The Siswai Aman are the spears of the dragon. The brotherless are called the Meradin.
Meradin.
Yes. So those were the
Say that as
non-Shido
if I remembered it, but I didn't.
yes, Meradin.
It was very convincing.
Of course, yes.
Then our brief glimpse of Shaido Haran, we were sort of joking about, like, did he just spend a couple seconds away from Shaiel Ghul, or like did he do something else first? And I thought that he might well have been somewhere else before feeling this Shaiel Ghul withdrawal, since he was also present when Samarag tortured that Aes Sedai and her warder to death. Yeah. And, you know, that was for much longer than we saw him in this scene, and he didn't seem to show any kind of signs of weakness or fatigue or anything like that. The only mitigation to that point, I would say, is that we were never told where that torture happened, and that could have been much closer to Shaiel Ghul than all the way down here.
He was still within the 5 gigahertz
that's not that
range.
far south.
No.
It's about halfway down the map, right? Or even further north.
Not even.
It's further north.
Third of the way down.
Yeah, third of the way.
Okay.
Yeah,
So his range is bad.
The next border is with Shinar. Or Shinar, if you prefer.
Well,
it's got terrible
by
range.
that logic, it's almost in range of Tarvalon.
It is.
So,
it's
on the
same
boundary.
Parallel.
Yes.
We'll call that the 5 gigahertz range.
Okay.
If we go a little bit further, it's going to be the 2.4.
the Shaido Haran, is he 5G enabled?
Yes, he is.
That's why he's evil.
Yes.
What's a conspiracy?
And has COVID. The Band of the Red Hand.
Nanobots.
The Band of the Red Hand does, in fact, later introduce an improved crank for loading the crossbows faster. So our half memories are correct. Yes. Deshiva. Deshiva is revealed as a traitor in this very book. It's him, Gedwin, and Rocade that attempt to kill Rand, but they fail, and it's only later during the Battle of Shadow Logoth, during the cleansing, that it is hinted that he might have been Agenor. That only happens in Winter's Heart, so only in the next book. So even when he's betrayed Rand and turned coat, he is not exposed as being a fucking Forsaken that's been hanging around everywhere with Min and Rand and everyone. I don't know if we actually discussed this, but the Shadow Spawn in Shadow Logoth during the Samael confrontation all arrived via the Waygate, right? Because, you know, Samael gets there, because I forget always that Shadow Spawn can't use gateways. They can't travel. Yeah. They die instantly if they go through a gateway. And if you recall, Rand had, when he went to Shadow Logoth with Elder Haman and Aerith and her mum and Leah, that went missing, that whole exercise to go seal up that Waygate, I think he's collected like a whole bunch of metal, like power wrought metal or something, and encased the gate in that as well. He put all his traps and things in there. And then now when we saw it with the Samael fight, all that metal was just lying strewn about on the ground. So I thought that was a cool little detail that maybe we had missed.
I missed that. Yeah,
that is a nice detail.
Yeah. Okay, so our biggest debate from last time, right? Samael's death. Couple notes. So, Rand does not. I misspoke. I said that when Rand brings his beam of balefire from Leah towards Samael, it hits Mashadar, and Mashadar recedes because of that. He does not actually balefire Mashadar between Leah and Samael. He only hits buildings that collapse. But I have a new take on this whole scene.
Great. Let's hear it.
Of course I do. When Rand notices Mashadar descending on Samael, he thinks to himself, Samael was his. But I think that last word in that sentence should have been in italics. I think what was intended there is Rand thinks to himself, Samael was his, not Mashadar's. Like, I think
I don't know if
he
you can
quickly
insert like how the holy text should be written.
Okay, well, listen to this. So, Samael's standing there, oblivious to Rand. Yeah. Mashadar is literally about to hit him. It's like speeding up as it goes down to him. Rand looks at Samael and goes, Samael is his. doesn't sit there and wait for Mashadar to take 2 more seconds to hit him. He quickly, before Mashadar can get to Samael, spins up Balefire to unleash it on him. And that's when Leah shouts. And they look, and he Balefires Leah, and he looks back, and Samael is gone. The reason I bring that up is because I think the time between when Mashadar would have hit Samael and Rand would have Balefired him, or, the time it took to Balefire Leah is infinitesimal. Like, it is...
Didn't he, drag the stream?
He did, but by the time he got back, Samael was already gone. And his stream didn't actually... It's actually said explicitly, he only hits buildings and stuff. It wasn't in time to actually touch Mashadar. He only Balefired Leah. Leah screams and he Balefire instead and then sweeps it back. But he lets it go before, and these are the words from the book, the lake of Mashadar that rolled across the square, billowing past the waygate towards rivers of the glowing grey that flowed out from another place on the other side. Samael had to be dead. He had to be. There had been no time for him to run, no time to weave a gateway. So, the amount of time is what I'm drawing attention to here, right? Mashadar was about to be on him, and there was no time for Samael to do anything about it. So I don't think we need a time travel shenanigan mechanic to sort of abstractly imply that Mashadar got there even faster. It didn't need to. It was right there already.
Well, we don't have to. Well, we should. And we did.
We have. Yes. But speaking of Leah, she was in Shadow Logoth for 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Holy Mother of God.
She goes missing when Rand goes there with Elder Harmon and blah, blah, blah. And that's a little while ago now. That actually happened some time ago in a previous book. I misspoke about the male Adam. I called it the Dominion Band, but it is called the Domination Band. Pedantry. Yeah, pedantry.
I'll allow it.
Morel's friend, who also swears fealty to Egwene, is Nassau. Just so we can all file that name away and definitely remember it next time.
I'll never forget that.
And then Renailed, so Bluey, that Villy mentioned last time, who's sort of speaking for the Windfinders. Her nickname, her title is Blue Star or something like that. Mm-hmm. And Villy named her Bluey.
Oh, Bluey, of course.
Renailed and Kaelon Blue Star or something like that. She's the one that Matt sort of, had the interaction with, called her, you daughter of the sands, and then she tried to cut him and he took her knife and all that stuff. She is the Windfinder to the mistress of the ships.
Yes.
She is numero uno Windfinder among all Windfinders, which I did not grok at the time.
Right. She's like their Amerlin.
Yes. But then later in the story, Nesta Din Reyes, who is the mistress of the ships, she is killed. And Renail is demoted to the lowest Windfinder rank, just above apprentice. And she has to work her way all the way back up if she wants to. Is
that because of the bad deal?
No, she's just linked to the queen. She's linked to Nesta Din Reyes. Okay. And when Nesta Din Reyes dies,
she falls as well.
She automatically starts from the beginning. Wow. She was her Windfinder.
Almost like the keeper.
The cool little social dynamic.
Yowza, it's hard, eh? It's a bit harsh.
It's tough. Yeah.
Your 30 years of experience and service mean nothing.
Yes. Back in the line. All right, that brings us to listener contributions, and the delivery man, Richard Jackson, followed up on our Catswain points with the following observation. He goes, in The Gathering Storm, he quite usefully puts in here, book 12, for us idiots that don't know which book is which. In chapter 14, Catswain thinks of Soralia as being as strong as her and an equal. She is surprised at this, especially considering Soralia's strength in the power, which again solidifies my impression of Catswain's original question to Hermes. She is surprised to think of Soralia as her equal despite her low strength in the one power, which implies that she puts a lot of stock in strength in the one power, as we know. As we know, the Aes Sedai do.
Yeah, she is Aes Sedai.
Mr. Dependable, Ian Yellen, sends in the following. We were asking, how do you join a fraternity? Here we go. Oh, yeah. You can join the American college fraternity system by finding a fraternity you want to be a part of and then become a pledge for it. While a pledge, you are instructed on the beliefs, rules, and practices of the fraternity. During your time as a pledge, the fraternity decides whether they want you or not as well. Historically, this was done through hazing to either try and force you to quit or see if they liked your reactions or determination to do it. And at the end of the process, there's usually a ceremony where they say they want you or not, for those who didn't leave already. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks.
Anyway, my guess is that this is how someone joins an Aiel society. I mean, there's some logic to that, right? Like, you would obviously choose this. I mean, for the maidens, there are limited options. But for the men, they would go to a society and probably express their interest, and then they would be put through some kind of trials. The Sayadun that Merrick was the sort of society leader for, they are called Black Eyes because apparently they specialize in being able to see in low light, like at dusk and early morning. Like, that's their specialty. Like, they can see really well, which is obviously not an actual physiological thing in their bodies, but that's what they pride them on. And they probably train, for those specific skills. So when you've picked a warrior society, maybe they give you trials like the knife hands. Maybe you do have to chop some watermelons with your hands, or stab a fly to a wall with your middle finger. Yeah.
I don't like that idea. I think there should be a way
a sorting
mechanic. Hat. Like, the sorting hat did come to mind, but more that you've got a, what was it? What Divergent? I can't remember that movie's name. We actually have to go through games and get yourself to become into that, like almost like a running.
Maybe the games are slicing watermelons thrown at you at dusk in low light.
With your bare hands, like knives.
Yes. It narrows it down. You can either be a black eye or a knife hand. Yeah. The stone dogs are just in the corner hitting bong after bong.
Throw stones at dogs.
And then Ian also says, I remember Deshiva always mumbling to himself off in the corner, so I thought he was already going mad, which explained away his other behavior. And if I remember right, he was killed by the people defending Rand and Nynaeve while cleansing the source, correct? And everyone thought it was kind of odd because they had been attacked by a bunch of Forsaken and a rogue Ashaman. Essentially, they didn't even know he was Forsaken all the way to the end of the book. We've got that to look forward to in book 9. And that is it for callbacks. So let's quickly draw, I'm going to say the final line under A Crown of Swords by going previously on, but there's going to be a callback in a future episode. Someone's going to pick up the Samael death thing and email us in 6 months' time, and we're going to read it. That'll happen. But let's draw
you, Mr. John, on episode 7.
Yes.
See you later.
I'm going to draw a little pencil line then, a dotted pencil, very faint dotted pencil line under A Crown of Swords by going one more time through previously on Blood and Ashes. After the chaos of the Rohad and retrieving the Bowl of the Winds, Matt and the gang are back at the Tarrasyn Palace. Armed with Birgitte's ancient knowledge, Matt is trying to educate everyone just how dangerous a golem can be. He tries to convince the Windfinders that returned with Nynaeve, the kin, and the Aes Sedai in attendance that they should leave immediately, but nobody is really buying his fantasy. Finally, exasperated, Matt turns his attention to the Windfinders, drawing on his own ancient memories to deftly maneuver them into agreeing to move with the other women, thanks to a little Verin influence. Rhiann Corley suggests the farm they use to go lay low, and everyone agrees it is a good choice. Before they can depart, Matt realizes Olver is not in the palace and sets off to go look for him while the others prepare to travel to the farm. While he's searching, Matt witnesses the arrival of the Shawnshan and is caught up in their attack when a wall collapses on him, trapping him in Ibudar for the next 2 books. Then, we checked in with a couple baddies. Galena is suffering at the hands of the Rava, her Shadow Wise One captor. She is named Datsang by 3 Wise Ones, including Savannah, which pisses off the Rava, who wanted to parade Galena as a prize guy Shane. Samael and Grindel show up and give the Shadow the fake travel boxes, and when they use them, they're scattered between Gildan and Ilian, many getting trampled beneath Rand's advancing army. We get a glimpse of Shadow Haran, who's keeping a close eye on Samael and Grindel. And finally, Rand wakes up after 2 days of convalescence, surrounded by the Aes Sedai, or some Aes Sedai, a Wise One, Ashaman, and of course Min. He immediately sends everyone except Min and the Ashaman out of the room. Min tells him that she had a vision of Catswain teaching him and the Ashaman something they would not like learning. Rand asks Min to distract the maidens outside while he and the Ashaman head out to deal with Samael. They travel to Bashir's camp and ready the men, and then launch a full-scale attack on Ilian itself. The Ashaman open gateways to the square of Tamaz in Ilian, and Rand's forces pour into the city. Rand announces his arrival via one-power loudspeaker in an attempt to draw out Samael. The Ashaman start channeling non-specific flows of the one power across the entire city, triggering Samael's traps and wards all at once. Samael does show up after a brief skirmish with Rand, during which Rand injures his heel. Samael goads Rand into following him into Shadow Logoth. In the cursed city, Samael has already stationed Trollocs and Fades brought in via the Waygate. Rand encounters some Trollocs and a Fade, which he quickly dispatches with his flame sword. He also encounters the lost maiden Leah, who, when she recognizes Rand, runs off. Samael attacks Rand's vicinity with destructive weaves, forcing Rand into a building at one stage where the floor collapses and Rand looks like he's going to meet an untimely end. But at the last second, a stranger in black pulls Rand up out of the hole he's dangling in. He chastises Rand for putting his own plans in jeopardy, and Rand, not knowing this is Moradin/Ishamel, tries to give him advice. Mashadar shows up and they both channel Balefire instinctively. The beams of Balefire cross with a massive concussive effect for both channelers. Mashadar recedes and they both flee the scene, expecting another attack from Samael after they had channeled in that spot. Moradin gives Rand a clue as to where Samael can be and disappears around a corner. Rand realizes he never felt the man channeling Saidin. Using Moradin's clue, he heads to the waygate and takes up a position in a tall tower. He sees Samael emerge from a building, but he also spots Mashadar descending from a balcony towards Samael. Rand is about to claim the kill for himself with Balefire when he and Samael are both distracted by the scream of Leah, now standing across the square, touched by Mashadar. Rand changes his focus to Leah, Balefiring her in an attempt to spare her a terrible death at the hands of the fog. By the time he looks back to where Samael was standing, he's gone. No time for a gateway, no sense of channeling, just gone. Rand skims back to Ilion, where the Council of the Nine crown him King of Ilion. Which brings us now to a brand new book. Book 8, The Path of Daggers. We start with a prologue called Deceptive Appearances. Whose appearances are deceptive, Jody?
Yours. I'm exhausted. You seem unfazed by that 5 minutes super rattle off.
It was. My mouth is quite dry.
Yeah, so I had to talk about something, did I? Deceptive appearances. Oh, yes.
Now,
oh, yeah.
There are two pretty long and one mini section here, Joe. So I think there's the Black Hills, there's Verin, and there's a little Moradin section. It's going to be weird to go back to the Black Hills after reading about Verin. So just take a pause after the Black Hills and we'll talk about the Borderlanders and then we'll do Verin.
Oh, God, do we need to talk about these Borderlanders?
Oh, more like Borderlanders.
Nice.
That's good.
All right.
I like that.
That's a dad joke if there ever was one.
You're so dad.
You've earned it. So we joined the Queen of Kandor. We haven't heard anything about these Kandorans. Kandorians? Nope. I don't know.
Kandori.
Kandori? Oh, no. I don't like that. Or the Arafalans. We only really know about the Shinnarans. They've been, and the Saldeans, of course.
Of course.
But now we're meeting the rest of them. And we're just going straight. We're not even meeting people that work the fields. We're going straight to the kings and queens. So we joined the Queen of Kandor, Ethaniel, as I pronounce it, riding through the Black Hills with 50 of her best men. She is with her first counselor, someone by the name of Saraila. Just telling you names. And she asks her if she's made the right choice. She's starting to second guess herself. Really? The queen? Anyway. They've got some big plan. No one's going to like it. And they have to be super secret. We'll find out as we go along what's happening. She thinks to herself that if the White Tower would not do or could not do what must be done, then someone must. So they're taking matters into their own hands. And there's no use in them guarding the blight while the rest of the world succumbs to absolute chaos. So they're taking some steps of their own. So they've been moving in secret along with the rulers of the other 3 Borderlanders to a secret meeting. So we got everybody. We got some old faces popping in later. She thinks she's lucky that she didn't have to murder innocent villagers who may have accidentally seen her along the way. So they've made great efforts to go around those villages to avoid the murdering, of course. And also White Tower spies. They're worried that news is going to get... Well, she is worried that news is going to get back to the White Tower about what they're up to up here behind everyone's back. And I'm thinking, you skipped all those villages because you thought they were White Tower spies. Nobody even mentions the Dark Friend spies. Which I thought, you guys don't know. And then just another sign that people don't realize how many Dark Friends there really are and where they are.
Total denial, hey?
Yeah. They only think, in those villages there would have been White Tower spies, not Dark Friends. You didn't think about that? Anyway, your own problem. There's enough, I suppose they've got enough Dark Friends, that they fight in the Blight every day, in your face Dark Friends, to worry about those ones at home.
Yes.
Riding with her is Lord Baldheer, her sword bearer. He's got some grotesque-looking, bejeweled, scabbarded sword that he carries with. That's the Queen's sword, but he carries it for her. I suppose it's a Borderland thing. So she's asking him the same thing again, are we doing the right thing? And he is just not stoked that he has to hide who he is. He doesn't give a fuck. He says everyone's going to find out about us soon enough. Someone's going to notice us eventually. Just tell me who to stab. I don't care about this. So finally, they reach the meeting point. It is described as a shallow bowl in the ground, not big enough to be called a valley. And there's this like spire that's sticking out. That's like this thing from the Age of Legends, and there's all these things about it. Are we all thinking radar dish, right?
Yep.
That's what
well, it's not. It's from the Age of Legends, apparently, not from pre-Age of Legends. So it could be anything. I mean, the Age of Legends.
I mean,
it's
they
like
think it's from the Age of Legend. Yeah, but they could have been using the one power to search the universe or other worlds, which they have
Or a
found.
meteor strike.
Like, it's very
one
similar
of the two, but a meteor
Yeah,
strike would not have a tower in the inside of the dome-shaped valley.
Yeah, well, it's a bowl, and then it's got the spire, the middle spire of the.
I see what you're saying.
All right,
I
Must
missed
send
that
you a photo.
completely. No. Just
No,
you
that's
should
what I
just,
think it
just
is.
said GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, GoldenEye,
Yes.
indeed.
Okay.
You know that
See
one
you later,
in GoldenEye
006.
broke down,
Hey.
and the thing, the whole eye is now snapped and crashed through the whole thing. It's now finished, broken.
I did not draw the connection between the spire and the shape of the bowl-shaped valley itself at all. Right over my head. But now I'm firmly in radar dish. Camp radar
It's
dish.
a radar dish, man. Yeah,
yeah.
surely in the Age
Can.
of Legends they had that, and if not, if it was from an earlier age, the people there are just, what the fuck do they know? Like the current day people.
Yeah.
They don't realize it. It's from the Age of Legends. End of
Nah.
story.
It
And
drives people
the
crazy.
fact that it's made
Makes you
like,
see ghosts.
into the ground makes sense. Like it's this massive, a very big array. Not an array; it's a single one. But maybe there's more interesting
Buried
science
under
they
the
did.
ground. Yeah, I liked this little nod.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so there you go. If you were not on board, you now are.
100%.
This is where, in the bowl, this is their meeting spot. This is where they encounter Paitar Nachiman, SCR Tugita, the kings of Arafel and Shinar. Because we never met the king of Shinar before.
Nope.
Right? We just all met old Lord Agelmar Jagard, who is here. Everybody, he's back. So, yeah, each of these two kings has their attendants. Paitar has brought Ishigari Terasian and Kirill Shianari. And Iasar, I can't do this, dude, has bought Lord Agelmar. All right. In the book, he's just described as Agelmar Jagard, but I'm like, whoa, that's Lord Agelmar to you. Excuse me.
Well, it's from a queen's point of view.
I don't care. It's Lord. He's still a lord.
She don't care neither.
No, apparently not. She describes him when she's looking over everybody. She describes Agelmar as sudden death waiting to be unleashed.
I love it.
Wow. And Alisoon Chulin. I don't know who this person is. I don't know if it's a man, if it's a woman. There's a lot of people here, right? Plus, everybody brought 50,000 of their best men. Like it's massive. So Ethaniel asks if they have managed to come this far without being detected and nobody saw you. SCR is just like, well, if we've been seen, might as well turn back now. So yeah, we're pretty sure that we weren't spotted along the way. The fourth Borderland ruler, Tenobia, you may recognize her, of Saldaea, then sneaks up behind them to make a flamboyant entrance to inform them that she will not turn back until Davram Bashir and this Rand Althor learn who really rules Saldaea. She is on a mission. And I like, because she's young, and when she comes in, she's late, like fashionably late, rears her horse like a horse is up on its hind
Drama
legs.
queen.
Like, just a real drama queen. I'm here, everyone. Be amazed. All right, so she's got like, listen, I brought my 50,000 men. I'm going to use them. You guys want to turn back? If someone saw you, go for it. I've got to go talk to my uncle. She only has one attendant with her, another uncle. Cairhien Ramson, these names. I figure she's got a lot of uncles. Yeah, she's got just tons of uncles because they all just
They say
everywhere. Yeah, uncles everywhere.
Yeah.
So SER and Paitar assure Tenobia that they too, they do not want to run away. And then like Ethaniel, this is our point of view character, just starts daydreaming about the strange natures of Saldeans. She goes off on a little tangent. We should get her on the show with us. Everyone thinks Saldeans are weird, apparently, because she's like these. No one understands
very,
Saldeans.
very honest. We started thinking that with the interactions between Perrin and Fael.
Totally.
It got weirder when an army rocked up with all of their wives, and there's a lot of payment to be made for the fact that they were left out of the battle. Like,
Yes.
they're dodgy people. Like, we should maybe keep tabs on them. Like, Davram is cool and all, but like, maybe we should take him with a pinch of salt and actually just unseason his advice.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, if the Kandorans or Kandorai are also thinking, Jesus, these Saldeans are weird. Like, other Borderlanders think they're weird. So this to me is like, wow, okay.
Well, they certainly have a flair for the dramatic. Think of Fael, think of Davram Bashir. Time for punch before battle?
Think of Ethaniel's entrance not 30 seconds ago.
Tenobia.
Yes. Sorry, Tenobia, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ethaniel is who we're with. She's daydreaming about these weird Saldeans, and she's also thinking about Tenobia. Like, oh, she's young. She's got a temper on her. Like, what's new? All of them do. You know what? She needs to be married, but not to one of my sons. She realizes, like, this woman needs to be married, but not into my family. Last thing I'll do. And like, oh, well, then I guess she'll just die a maiden and forgets about it. She tunes back into the conversation later on when she hears somebody mention Aes Sedai. It's like, yeah, the guys we're trying to avoid. And she's like, look, if Aes Sedai have gained a hint of their plan, well, you know, we're in shit. But then again, Aes Sedai have plans of their own. She's super worried about these Aes Sedai. And it seems that Petar has brought along his Aes Sedai advisor, Koladara. She's like, what? We try to keep the secret from the tower. And he goes, oh, by the way, Koladara had 7 other Aes Sedai visiting. So I brought them too.
They got a circle. They're ready.
Like, you brought 8 Aes Sedai? And he's like, yeah, I thought it would be like the good thing to do, the prudent thing to do under the circumstances, to bring them. Ethaniel is just blown away by this moron. Like, 8 Aes Sedai? Then surely the White Tower knows everything that they've intended. Like, the cat's out of the bag. You thought earlier that we might have been spotted? We have. As if that's not bad enough, Tenobia announces that she has also brought 5 Aes Sedai, who she ran into before leaving Saldea. So she's like, Ethaniel's like, you brought 13 Aes Sedai to this secret meeting that we've spent like weeks arranging to avoid Aes Sedai.
Actively from Aes Sedai.
And there's like 13 Aes Sedai right here, right now.
The pigeon system.
What have we been through?
You cannot wrap that many notes around the legs of a pigeon. Like, you want to send detailed instructions about a big ass meeting, but you got this dumbass small bird that cannot even carry a coconut its own weight. That is, yeah. I mean, let's not digress. I understand why Aes Sedai rocked up there.
Yeah,
it was. I don't know. There's got to be something more to this. This can't be a coincidence. Like, maybe later on we read about how the Aes Sedai found out about this, and we're like, whoop, something's up. We got to go. There's 200,000 Borderlanders amassing in the Black Hills, and are going to, march south instead of north. That's odd for them.
Well, there was note about it that the Borderlands has been super quiet, and I think it was in one of Elida's crazy chapters where she specifically like, everything has gone quiet in the Borderland. Like, there's not much happening there. And so
these guys say it as well.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe they went to investigate and just.
One of them says that the blight is unnaturally quiet, and then Agelmar says under his breath, "The shadow never sleeps."
And the guy next to him, Peter, I think it is, like silently nods with him, like, word.
Yeah, you know your shit. You fought at the gap.
Yes, many times.
Yes.
So yeah, back from Tangent Land. It's so fun there. So Ethaniel's like, okay, look, all of you, listen, if any one of these 13 Aes Sedai, just need one of them to send a message to the tower, and we're fucked. You think you can honestly stop an Aes Sedai from doing anything that they want to do? Like, you guys have ruined everything. Now we have no choice, but we've got to like move, like right now. But first, dinner. Yeah, punch anyone. Paytar replies that the dice are out of the cup, and I thought this is like just Matt popping up going, what? Who said something about dice? But he wasn't there, unfortunately. You just have to imagine that. SCR adds that further south, it may well have to, they may well have to deal with some Aes Sedai as well. Zenobia invites the three of them to dine, because as the Saldaean, she's the one that to offer punch and come to my silken tent, I imagine, to dine that night, and adds that to Ethaniel that her uncle, that Cairhien guy, would be honored to sit behind her. And Ethaniel immediately is like, wait, what? What? Are you trying to hook me up, you sneaky little bitch, with your
old-ass uncle?
Your old-ass uncle. The first time she notices him, she gets a look at him, and then she sees something in his eyes that she has not seen in a long time. A man looking at a woman, not a queen. Yeah. So then she starts, then she gets all nervous, and then she's like, oh, wait, actually, I'm going to need a strong man. This dude looks like he knows what he's about. So there's a little bit of a thing there. I believe, thanks to people writing in, that they do actually end up together. They do. Here's where it begins. They then all come together. Ethaniel suggests, like, listen, to break the tension. Just easing the tension, baby. Let's all slice our wrists. So they all slice their palms. Palms, I meant palms. Yeah. To grip them together and swearing a blood oath that they are one until the death. Ethaniel thinks now, while they're all bleeding together, that all they have to do is find Rand al'Thor and do what must be done, whatever the price. So,
dun, dun, dun.
Do what now? You going to do what to the who now?
Yeah, careful. Easy. Don't write checks with your mouth that your body can't cash.
Or your 50,000 men. Look, she's not stoked with her uncle, Zenobia. She's going down.
Oh, of course not. He was sent to go find Mazrim Taim. Now he's just joined the Dragon Reborn. He's just attacking Ilion.
Yeah, he's
training Andorans.
Not your orders.
Heavily. He's influenced by the Verin nature of Rand to no extent. Like everyone is influenced, including him.
Just caught in his slipstream.
Now, if I recall correctly, the Borderlanders are not someone that Rand has to worry about. I think they're going down to join him, right?
It's sort of painted as like, I mean, they are good guys, anti the Shadow. Rand is a good guy, anti the Shadow. We know they're going to be fine. I think it's supposed to come across as like they are not happy and they could, maybe raise a hand against Rand or cause trouble for him in some way. And I mean, sooner or later, I can't remember it specifically, but sooner or later there must be some kind of confrontation, some kind of conversation at least.
Yes.
See what happens.
Yeah.
I just keep saying like Lan is the king of the north, and he will just go like, yeah, that everyone will go, yep, king
of one. Did you guys read the little poem before the map? Or not the little poem, but the little excerpts, the little quotes?
Possibly. Poem before the map. Oh, yes.
It goes like this.
Are you going to read it to us? Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Of course. I won't just drop that in there and not do it.
Moving on.
The first one is just, so it's more like an idiom than a poem, really, but who would sup with the mighty must climb the path of daggers. And the attribution is anonymous notation found inked in the margin of a manuscript. History believed to date to the time of Arthur Hawkwing, of the last days of the Tovan conclaves. Important part there. From the time of Arthur Hawkwing. And then that second one is, on the heights, all the paths are paved with daggers, which is an old Seanchan saying, which is cool because the Seanchan being descendants of Arthur Hawkwing, you can see how they took that thing and it just sort of morphed over time and became sort of like a glib little thing that people said. That's a cool little way, just like a fun little interesting way to introduce the name of the book, which I thought was great. Now, Vil, did you have anything that you wanted to say? Because I've got a bunch of bone dry lore and name-related factoids to rattle off.
All right.
I got like 6-7 pages of people history on this stretch of the North people, but I can't read my handwriting, so I'll give you just take the floor and rattle.
I'm already drawing this picture, so all right, here we go. Ethaniel. That one.
Yes.
Both her husband and her son, Derek, were murdered in 979 NE by Merian Redhill of the Black Arger, posing as Blue Arger. Moraine was present at their deaths, dueling Merian with the One Power, but the only person alive who knows this is her warder. So only Lan knows that Moraine was there. They never told anyone this. The only person alive who knows this is her warder, Lan Mandragora, and neither Moraine's presence nor Merian's involvement in the deaths of the prince consort and the heir to the throne were ever discovered. So this sounds like stuff that probably went down in New Spring.
Yeah, it does.
But whoa, Moraine and Lan, other like non-dragon related huge secrets, like just players in like world politics and just keeping all that stuff close to their chest. Then I thought this was just like a cool description of the Black Hills. I've never conjured this clear an image of them. So they are described as being like really cut off from the rest of the world. You know, like it's like once you've gone in there and you're sort of like dealing with the villages and stuff, they sound very easily defensible. They sound intricate to navigate and just inhospitable. So there's no reason for people to move through there or anything. So I thought that was cool. That it sounds like a good place for that wilder, Norla, that taught Cadswain in the Black Hills. That's a place where a powerful wilder could, reside for hundreds of years, literal centuries, without being bothered by the tower or anything. So I'm really intrigued by the Black Hills and its, weird spire and stuff. We've heard something about the Black Hills as well, and I think Dashiva's cover story is that he grew up in the Black Hills.
Isn't Halima's body from a woman in the
That's
Black
what
Hills?
I thought first as well, but I think she's from the Borderlands. Her body was taken from the Borderlands. I made that exact same statement in a previous episode and then had to correct myself. And then I typed that out here, and then I went, hang on. Callback to a callback. I went and I looked it up.
And I called it back anyway.
It's because Osangar and Arangar were resurrected at the same time. So we were given that tidbit at the same time that we learned about Halima and Dashiva at the same time. Then Kirukan. So that blade, the queen's blade that's being carried by her sword bearer. Kirukan was the warrior queen from Aramael, which was a huge country. So takes up about 50% of the Borderlands originally. So this is like during, the years of Arthur Hawkwing. There was no Seldaea, there was no Shinar, there was no Arafel or Kandor. So it was like from Shinar through to like the middle of like Arafel or Kandor. So a huge country that she ruled. Legend says that she beheaded a false dragon with her sword and had 2 sons to another man who could channel. Birgitta Silverbow said that Kirukan's temper was like that of a boar caught in briars. So Birgitta has memories of this warrior queen with this. It's a power wrought blade that she used to behead a false dragon, which is a cool story for a sword that is never mentioned again.
There you go.
Paitar, the king of Arafel, is Kiruna's brother. Beran Kiruna? This is Paitar. This is her brother. This is why she's so haughty and so like holier than thou, because she is royalty. She is the sister of a king.
I hear you.
He, at this point, is 63 and looks old, like Ethaniel thinks about it. But Kiruna is never described as old. Kiruna is slightly younger than Paitar, but she's 61. But she obviously has the age, just looks sad.
Indeed.
Then Paitar's attendant, Ishigari Teresian, is the fat and always hungover looking dude, but is deceptively like good at his job. He's a great general. Yeah. Kirill Shianri is a snooty advisor. He's got like bells everywhere, like bells all over his clothes. And stuff.
That Kandori, yeah.
Yes, that's the dude.
Always wondered, that would be terrible for sneaking around in the Blight.
Absolutely, but he's described as like, he's like a lord, he's like your almost stereotypical fantasy lord, oily lord advisor, shitbag,
Worm tongue.
Yes,
Grima
exactly. Exactly.
He doesn't do any of the sneaking. He arranges the sneaking.
Yes.
Grima with bells.
I hate greasy men like that.
You're meant to. They are written that way specifically. I just call King Isar of Shinar Isar, not Easar or anything like it, just because it's Easy, Isar. Easy.
Okay, maybe. Because I always think it's got to be more difficult than what it would seem.
I mean, that's a fair assumption. And it probably is. I'm probably oversimplifying. I just like that he's like the other Shinarans, also still has a top knot. He's the king, and he's fully grey, but he's got a grey top knot. So still wears the warrior hairstyle. With Lord Agelmar. Hey, buddy, long time no see. It was cool to see Agelmar is respected by Ethniel and the other Borderlanders as well. And like you said, Joe, she says, sudden death waiting to be unleashed. Even the other Borderlanders know he is the shit. 2 great captains come from the Borderlands, Davram Bashir and Lord Agelmar. It's easy to forget Lord Agelmar is also one of the 5 great captains.
Yeah.
When he shifts in his saddle later, Ethniel thinks that he has the look of a man recalling where all his weapons are stored on his person. She also mentioned that he's like festooned with weapons, there's weapons everywhere. And as he moves in his saddle, he's just sort of like feeling, yep, okay, cool, my daggers, my knives, and my fucking hatchets and stuff are all in place and ready to go. It's Ishigari, the guy that sort of looks drunk and hungover all the time. He says, it seems like the blight is asleep. And then Agelmar says quietly under his breath, the shadow never sleeps. Isar has been mourning his wife for 11 years and wrote poetry for her. Which is cool because remember Agelmar and Lan were also talking poetry. Like back in the Eye of the World, we were talking about how cool these Shinaran sort of warrior poets are. Lan obviously spent he grew up in Shinar. That's why he's so familiar with all those guys. But it's just so cool that they weave it in like it's part of the culture. Like these badass great captain, the king, Landman Dragarin, like all these hectic fighters and kings and nobility also super into poetry. It just makes them even more badass.
Well, it's an effective way to communicate emotion when you're stoic and you don't show emotion just through the words of poetry. And like maybe that is just easier for them.
Totally. And they also use, swordplay to them is an art form. Like all the artistic names and the sort of, the way I imagine it anyway, is it's a very sort of like, almost like dancer-like motions. In fact, I think it is said as much like he's dancing with death or something like that.
Always dance the forms.
Yes. Yeah. So it is very, very like an artistic expression. Then Ethniel's swordbearer, the guy carrying Kirukan's blade, is Baldir or something like that. He plays a big role at the end of A Memory of Light. Now, I'm not going to spoil it here, Joe, but let's see if this triggers a memory. He calls out a mistake made by one of the great captains, which leads to a huge revelation. And how that...
Ah, yes.
Yeah. This is him. This is this guy that was carrying the sword. He's the one that notices and triggers the recovery.
Cool.
Willie in the dark. Cool.
See, that's why none of these spoilers is going to absolutely make any sense to me because just too much.
But I'm trying to avoid them where I can, where it makes sense. Like I don't have to spoil the thing, but it's cool. Jody and I and all our listeners that know the end of the story know exactly what I'm talking about. Then Tenobia's uncle, Kaelin Ramson, is named after Gabriel Ramson's daughter. Gabriel Ramson is a real-life person. It says, a quote from Gabriel Ramson, a person in our world. I wrote to Robert Jordan back in 1994. 3 books later, my name showed up. I beat all of you. I wrote to Jordan and told him how much I loved his books and let him know about my daughter Kayla. Then, as I was reading his book, I see my name with my daughter's, just a slight variation. So Kaelin Ramson is named after, it's the first that I know of person in the real world that has been written into the book. I know Brandon Sanderson did that a lot actually towards the end of the series. On the 13th repository, there's a huge list of characters named after people in the real world. Like pages and pages and pages of them. Mostly characters I do not remember ever reading about.
If you think about it,
one-time mentions.
If you do a fantasy world with a vast amount of characters, your creative ability for names are stretched thin. And yes, you get fan mail, they have names. Well, why not give them a place? Did I like your letter? No, I didn't. You are now a dark friend.
Yes.
Okay, back to Ethniel. She notes that due to her impossible standards, Tenobia would die a maiden, meaning her uncle Davram Bashir would inherit her throne, or else his heir. That happens, and Fael becomes queen of Saldea after the final battle.
Yes, that is true, I recall.
Neon, Ethaniel's Aes Sedai survivor is also named for Nian McAuliffe, an Irish fan of the Wheel of Time. She and her friend Aisling Noon, King Esau's Aes Sedai advisor, was named after her, wrote to Robert Jordan in their final year of school asking him to include them in his book series. And he did.
Cool. I wonder why them. Or maybe they said like names that he liked. Because I'm
I wish
sure
I'd written
1,000 people did that.
No, they wrote in. You'd think that a lot of people would be doing this, but maybe not. Like a few people.
How would you even do that?
Write to Tor. Hey.
Yeah, you couldn't tweet him. Then, they think Elida had miscalculated badly in sending a sister to bully Tenobia. That tracks. Queen of miscalculation. So I went back and I found the chapter where she does this, right? It's in the prologue of Fires of Heaven, where Teslin, who is now in Ibudar, is in the room with all of Elida and her cronies. Teslin and Jolene are both there. Teslin gives news about Davrin Bashir moving south and east after Taim's escape. Elida and Alviarin agree to send Memara, a red sister, to quote-unquote tame Tenobia. She will take no nonsense from Tenobia while never letting her see the leash.
Yeah.
Now we've met Tenobia and we're like, okay, gross miscalculation from Elida. And yes, of course. This blood pact has only been enacted 7 times since the breaking. So in 3,000 years. Is it? 3,000 years,
Yeah.
And that's all I had, Joe. You can now re-engage your brain.
All.
Just a little bit, just a sprinkling.
Yes. Phew. I got to find my notes again.
I like diving into these names because I am hoping, and it's probably futile, but I'm hoping to have some of them actually stick. You know, like I want to build out the lore and try and hold on to as much of it as possible. So whenever I read about these people, I might go again. Remember, this is the person that XYZ. So just bear with me. My friends and listeners.
I'm very happy that you are keeping track of this. You got the names
I'm trying
down. Like, so just another weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
You know us in tangents, yeah. Willie loves a garden path, as you know.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Especially if it leads to sodomy.
I wasn't going to say it, but you just did.
Sorry, Jody. Sorry. You got to let me compose myself now. Hang on. We're with Verin. Ah, yes. There we go. Who's in the Aiel camp outside of Cairhien. She has maneuvered herself into the good graces of the wise ones. They allow her to do her questioning, which we'll learn about, and to move freely and whatnot. But they're not buddy, all right? I don't want anybody to get that impression. She's still very much restricted, and she is considered, an Aes Sedai, as we all know how wise ones think about Aes Sedai at the moment. But she has been given some freedom, and she has some people to look after her and also, run and fetch things for her. So she is in her tent with Turana, an Aes Sedai of the White Asia, who was captured by the Ashaman at Dumai's Wells. So she is going through and questioning all of these captured Aes Sedai from Dumai's Wells. And that's her mission at the moment. I don't know how the hell, because we don't see this happening, but she managed to convince Sorelia to let all of this happen.
And Amis.
She's giving them information. And Amis, who agreed with it? Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm very shocked by this. But anyway, it happens. Verin, she chats quickly to outside the tent. She's got those 2 guys that are helping her and observing her, Coram and Mendan. They've been set to, and I quote, guide her. She thinks the size of the camp and the Aes Sedai have been named Datsang, because she can see them walking around outside. And then Aes Sedai, such as Karuna, who haven't. We remember all Karuna.
Just met her brother.
Yeah. So we're just having a look at the situation. She's in the tent, just giving us a little overview of what's happening in the camp. She asks Coram outside to tell one of the wise ones, Colinda, this is a new one, that she's done with Turana and would like to see Katerin Elrudin. This gigantic asshole.
Catherine L. Rudden, please pronounce it correctly.
Al-Rudin. No, I will not. She was, well, supposedly Red Aja, but Black Aja. And I looked a little bit into her backstory. You'll be pleased to know that Egwene kills her during the Battle of the White Tower in Tel'aran'rhiod with a spear when she makes her weaves to become useless. And then just picks up a spear and stabs her. So she doesn't hang around much longer.
Egwene becoming fully Aiel, and Missana setting Catelyn up. She puts on Catelyn the disguise that she had been using, and Egwene thinks she's killing Missana. So,
yeah.
Sorry for you, Catelyn.
Anyway. Yes. So, while she's waiting, she sees one of the Aes Sedai who was stilled by Rand, going by, I think, Urgain is her name. Anyway. And just like, again, feeling sick. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've seen, what you've done. If you're an Aes Sedai and you see another Aes Sedai that's been stilled walking around, you want to empty your guts. But she goes back to the tent now and looks after Turana until the wise ones arrive. So then that's when they do. Davien and Losane, they enter the tent. They link and they assume Turana's shield and they lead her from the tent. So there's a switching around. So they've got this system going now where everybody's always shielded and under. Aaron? These names are getting weirder and weirder. This is another wise one. We're introduced to so many wise ones.
So many.
I am so happy I didn't get this prologue. So stoked. So stoked.
Dude, you're just going to have to bear with me as I fumble through it, okay?
There was some method to the chapter selections in this episode.
I said something that offended Moritz last week, so here I am. So there's another wise one who arrives. She seems to be in charge. She's higher up the ladder. Aeron, whatever you want to do. She moves over to Verin's notebook and starts flipping through the notes. It was like, oh, sneaky. But of course, everything is in code, so she doesn't understand anything. Verin thinks, haha, good luck trying to break that. She also sees nothing about the questions that Verin is supposed to be asking the Aes Sedai, so she wants to know, what are you doing here? What are you asking? Verin's like, well, just telling her, look, they all have been saying the same thing. The Kara Khan, they're trying to find out like what the plan was, the Aes Sedai plan when they captured Rand. What were they going to do? Where were they going to take him? What were they going to do with him there? Blah blah blah. She was like, but everyone's giving me the same story. The Kara Khan was to be housed in the tower as a guest until the last battle and guided and all of that. And this whole box scenario began because of an escape attempt. But, I suppose, of course, everyone already knows that, but that's all I've been hearing. But, never fear, I'm here and I will learn more and I'm going to get to the bottom of this. She's really, buttering herself up. Buttering herself up. You know what I mean.
Yes.
Ingratiating herself.
Rubbing butter all over her body.
It's an Aes Sedai thing, Yes. The Aiel understand. They also have weird tent things.
They do.
So the two maidens enter with Beldine Nyram, an Aes Sedai of the Green Aja. And Verin's like, well, I asked for Catherine, you remember? El Rudden, as she is supposed to be pronounced. And apparently this one has escaped. She did a sneaky, and she's like, what? She escaped? And I like how the wise ones are like, yeah, but, maybe we just keep this between ourselves and don't let the Kara Khan know that we lost one of these Aes Sedai. So even they are afraid of being caught out by the Kara Khan. But she's thinking now, this is Verin, she's thinking like, oh, I've been doing this something all day, and it's super, super tiring, this questioning and the way I'm doing it. I can't, go through, do many more of these. But anyway, I've got some questions to ask, so yeah, she will take this one if there's no other one.
Yeah.
And she also thinks to herself at this point, like, that she can do it, whatever she's doing, she could do it to any of the Aes Sedai that don't have warders. And so she's carefully picking these people so that they don't have warders. So it was like, oh, and you're reading as a reader going like, why? What are you doing? What are the warders going to feel? All right, but she's picking ones with dead warders or those who don't have warders. So luckily this Beldine, who you mentioned earlier, has been brought in. And she has no warders. She is actually quite young. She's new to the shawl. She doesn't even have the ageist look yet. And both of her warders were killed. Aiel, this Vili's just smiling now. The wise one that entered with the maidens and Beldine replies that, this is the one that tells that Catherine El-Rudden has escaped. So Verin is instructed then to not tell Rand, and after she and Beldine are alone, Verin begins to speak with her. And Beldine's immediately like, how dare you? How could you have turned cloak on us, and sworn fealty to Rand so easily? And Verin is like, well, listen, Beldine, you are a Datsang. I would rather be sworn to fealty than where you are at the moment. And Beldine's like, all right, fine, you win. She loses some of her acidity. So Verin offers Beldine healing, and she accepts because she's been made to like crawl around on her hands and knees, filling holes and whatnot. So she's pretty beat up and tired and sunburnt and all kinds of things. So Verin heals her, and then while Beldine is still vulnerable and being healed, she begins another weave using a secret ungrill that she has had for many, many years. And now, as a new reader, you're going, hang on now, what's all this? And something that I imagine a new reader would do, but of course I did not and have no memory of this whatsoever. So the weave is very intricate. It uses all 5 of the powers, heavy and spirit. And Beldine starts realizing that, hey, whoa, I know what healing feels like. This is a different thing. She's like, Verin, what are you doing? But she's all like dopey and out of it. Verin replies like, no, don't worry, this will not harm you. And then thinks to herself, well, you're probably going to die within a year or so, but don't worry about it because of this weave. So at this point, tons of alarm bells should be going off in your head about who Verin is and what her motives are, because she knows that this weave is going to kill this Aes Sedai.
Well, she says specifically that because of this weave, the actions it makes her perform, that not the weave itself will kill her. That's how she immediately justifies it.
Yes, all right. I'm just rereading my notes here where it says, the weave itself will not harm Beldine. All right. I did actually, yes. I will read my notes more clearly.
Okay. But it is noteworthy.
It is noteworthy.
She is doing this thing, and I mean, at the very least, if it doesn't condemn her as a dark friend or a murderer or anything, it does paint her as like pretty fucking Machiavellian, right? Like she will do whatever it takes, kill an Aes Sedai or set them up to die.
Yeah. Yep. So she's clearly on her own little tangent. We love her. So, not to make anyone else suspicious, she starts asking questions while she's doing this as well. It seems like there's been a lot of this lately, Aes Sedai performing intricate weaves while talking, as a way of being able to do it. Yeah. So this is another thing. So Verin's just like going through the questions, blah, 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 that she's been asking everybody else about Rand. And she kind of just continues with the weave. The weave takes a while. It's quite intricate. And you could see why that she didn't want to do too many of these interrogations today because she's kaput. Many of the wilders who go to the tower on their own all have these little tricks that they've learnt, and they are under 2 categories almost always. It's a way to listen to other people's conversations and a way to make people do as the channeler wanted. So this is what Verin has been doing for all of these years. She's been questioning all of these girls that have been coming in as wilders who have these skills and piecing it together and creating a weave that is similar to, but not exactly like, compulsion. Yeah. So this weave that Verin has been putting on them is compulsion to a degree. It's not as strong as compulsion, and it's not the same way. It takes much, much longer. And also the person has to be kind of willing. You can't force them against their will. And so it's got some caveats, but still, they are going to do what you tell them to do. So Verin, over many, many years and all these stories and interrogations with these like wilders that have been brought in, she's figured it out. Because apparently the tower doesn't give a shit about listening to other people's conversations, but this compulsion thing, they've tried to beat it out of new novices and stuff, these wilders that come in. But Verin has found the tricks. So finally, when Verin finishes with the weave, she pulls on some of the weaves there, and the whole like thing becomes an intricate weave and then collapses in on her. It's all very magical and awesome.
Sounds cool.
And then she gives Beldine instructions, which we are not privy to, and pulls on the rest of it. And the causing the weave to settle into Beldine. So it's like kind of like a web that covers her, and then she gives her instructions, and then ties it off like finally, and like goes inside her through her skin. It's like, yeah, a very cool scene. I like to see magic done like this. Beldine then starts to convulse, so it does have some some unforeseen side of, well, it's foreseen, I suppose, for Verin. She's lying on the ground having a convulsion, but it finally like calms down. Verin's very scared at this point. Like Coram and Mendon outside are going to come inside and find out what she's done, but she doesn't. They don't. She does call them in though, and she just lets them know, like, oh look, she's on the floor because she fainted. She needs, to be watered by the wise ones. So even though they are still a few hours left in the day for Verin, she's thinking about this, like, I still have time to do more, but I'm so exhausted. But she thinks, like, listen, I'm going to do one more of these interrogation/compulsion sessions, and asks for this Eargain to be brought to her. Eargain is a green, by the way, but she does not have warders, and she was stilled at Dumai's Wells. She was one of the Aes Sedai that was holding Rand's shield when he broke free. So he stilled her as he came out, and she lost both her warders.
Tough day at the office.
Tough day at the office, and now she's going in for this interrogation compulsion thing with Verin. And later, also side notes, she gets healed. This what's her name, Eargain, by Dharma Flynn later. And he heals her back to full power. So she does come back and have a little redemption arc. I do think she dies, though. We don't know what happens to her in the last battle. There's nothing clear, but at least we know she gets as far as a couple of books from here. And then we leave the chapter, we leave this point of view with Verin telling herself that she has to keep Rand alive until it is time for him to die. Like, well, if you weren't suspicious of Verin before now,
isn't Verin
very,
the best?
very suspicious.
Isn't she like the coolest character? She is so, you just don't know what to make of her.
I
liked her.
Her. Yeah. Like, this is the reveal. Like, like, because she's been hanging around with the good team for a long time. She's been influential in helping the good team. She's not been...
That's it. Like, helping Perrin,
warning
Perrin against Alana. Yeah.
This is very suspicioso.
So do you want to quickly do the Moradin section, or should we have a chat about Verin and then we finish off with Moradin?
Moradin is pretty easy, and I don't think there's much to talk about there, to be honest. It's just
he's mad.
A scene of a madman musing to himself about stuff.
Playing chess with himself.
Playing chess without moving any pieces whatsoever.
He's playing both sides, both sides of the board, so it's impossible to lose. And then he's like laughing and like crying at the same time. Tears are running down his face, and he's oblivious. Yeah, okay, he's mad.
Well, there you go. No, we've talked about it now. Let's
mad as Norris.
Let's carry on.
So Verin.
Yeah. Verin. What a
reveal.
Crazy woman.
Reveal. Not crazy. Like crazy in control. Like she's figured out her own compulsion weaves. Like
you got to have balls of steel to do what she's doing inside the Aiel camp.
What's everyone's channeling around there? There's so many channelers around there, so I don't think that her channeling is going to make any difference. But what?
No, not the channeling.
They know that she's channeling, but using this weave.
Oh yes.
Like she keeps saying, like if any wise one walks in, they'd be like, "What is this? I can see that weave. This is not healing or anything akin to it. This is
that's why she gets close.
You're not telling us it."
She's also starting off with healing. Like she's offering the healing the whole time, and eventually, come, let me heal that sunburn.
Yeah, because you've got to gain their trust.
Your robe is very, very clean, and your skin is very dirty. You've been working in the nude, haven't you? Sunburn can hurt so very badly. Anyway, trust gets there. She gets close, and she starts healing with spirit. And then the spirit changes in a very complex weak start. Like, I think she's like tapping in on like all of those good receptors and drugging. It's like playing with the nervous system. It's like little strings attached to her fingers.
Releasing dopamine.
Yeah, like something weird like
in
that.
Her brain.
But it's
cool,
potentially, because I thought about that, was she breaking any of the 3 oaths in like trying to figure that out?
I don't think the 3 oaths, but certainly Tower Law, which is separate from the 3 oaths, right? They have their own laws about using balefire, using having terangrial that are not registered, like that sort of stuff. So there are laws against anything resembling compulsion. So she is absolutely.
And we know
she says
Verin
if she
has
had
been
to
a
be, if she
hoarder.
had to be busted doing this, she would be stilled. She says it in this chapter. Yeah, a hoarder of knowledge.
Hoarder of
and
knowledge
trinkets.
and trinkets. You never forget the trinkets. She gave them the rings to get into Terra and Landrioid. Like without them getting those rings, how much development would they not
The
have
ring,
been?
just the one.
Well, it led to more rings.
Copies,
like
yeah.
so
Totally.
the point in the building of it, like Verin has been sitting there saying, oh well, this has got to happen. I've got to just put this one puzzle piece in play over there, click click, and then much further down the line there's another click click.
She's super old. She's been around for ages. She thinks here about like what would have happened if she didn't become an Aes Sedai. She would have stayed in Farmanning and married that dude, and he would already be dead. Her son would be dead. Her grandchildren would be dead. Like she's a seasoned veteran.
Indeed.
The chapter also, early in the chapter, it says Verin already had reasons for the path she followed and purpose. So much new context, knowing what we know, right? Like it's so cool reading this stuff now, and comparing what you are inferring from it with what you sort of read when you read it the first time. Just like, motherly old Verin who's helping the good guys, helping Rand die. Surely that must mean he is. Verin is super into the prophecies, right? She did a lot of the prophecy translation and stuff in the Great Hunt when the Dark Prophecy is on the wall, and she knows about Toman Head, and she speaks to Moraine about that sort of stuff. So she obviously knows about the dragon having to spill his blood on the rocks of Shaiel Ghul. So I'm wondering if that is what she is implying about when Rand must die. Keeping him alive until it's time for him to die. Because she's a double agent. She's Black Aja, but she is definitely playing both sides. She was caught, I think, investigating them and was sort of trapped and had to join or be killed. Something along those lines. And then thought, okay, cool. Well, now that I'm here, I can really learn about them. So she also knows that Catelyn is Black Aja. She has a list of the 200 and odd. I think there's 3 or 4 Black Aja sisters that she does not know about. And that's it. Like the list that she has is of all of them. So she knows about Catelyn. She even thinks to herself here, I wish we could have arranged for an accident so that Catelyn could be dead. No fucking scruples, Verin. Does not fuck around. Like, will kill.
Now you also know how she got the list of names because of how tightly the Black Aja. She was been maybe at this one meet your 2 connections, Aja meet. And then she's like, cool, I'll just compel the 2 of you. Oh, you look sunburned. Would you like some tea?
Wouldn't be easy to do that to fully conscious channelers, right? Like if you channel
Verin,
one person,
Verin
another
did
one would
get a lot of info.
She got that list. And how big is a heart? Okay, I'm creating a callback for myself, but like in the Black Aja, a heart is just 3, right?
3.
Like you only know of yourself and 2 other sisters.
Yep.
So Verin, I mean, she found virtually all of them. That's incredible.
She missed out on one heart then. The one heart.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah. Let's see. What else did I have here? The Siswa, Aman, and the maidens are just waiting for the Aes Sedai, quote-unquote, guests to make a mistake and give them an excuse to kill them, right? So there's a lot of focus brought here to what the Aes Sedai think about... the Aiel, what the Aiel think about the Aes Sedai. The one, Aaron, whatever the wise one's name is that comes in, Verin thinks about how she's seen her give motherly smiles to other people. She is quite a friendly sort. But to the Aes Sedai, she is stone cold. She is also literally looking for an excuse to kill them. And I don't know if it's in this chapter or later where you read about how the Aiel are not even pissed off about the capture of Rand and the torture. What is really getting their backs up is the fact that they showed a lack of honor by pretending to come and treat with Rand and then kidnapped him. The deception of that's the thing that they hate about the Aes Sedai. It's not even the torture. They don't care about that. Like, anyone should be able to take a physical beating. That's fine. But you lied. Yeah. So fuck you.
You told a fib, and that's way worse.
That's so Aiel and so
no deceiving. You can't do that. There's many Torah.
There is no honor in it. Only shame. Interesting that Verin wages the Wise Ones didn't know how to link mere days ago, and now they look like they've been doing it their whole lives. So a lot of things the Wise Ones didn't actually know. She also Verin sees what a threat Cadsuane could be to any plans that she may have. So not sitting back and just letting Cadsuane take over. I mean, she does sit back and she does let things play out, but she is very tuned in to what is actually happening. I love the fact that when the Wise One looks through her notebook, it's not that it's filled with a cipher that she can't understand. It's full of illustrations with notations and stuff. But to Verin, that stuff means something else. Yeah. Like her cipher is, indistinguishable from just normal like field notes. Pictures of birds and leaves and annotations and stuff, which is so fucking cool. That Wise One says to Verin, Aes Sedai have no honor. Just like blanket statement. Aes Sedai have no honor. So, another window into what their opinion is.
Yep.
Interesting that Verin can't work as easily with sisters that have warders. So obviously a warder would become aware of this invasion. And that's why she's prioritized the ones without warders.
Because the same receptors, like the warders, know if his Aes Sedai is having sex. Because the dopamine and all that adrenaline, everything's fine. I think that's what she's going in on that.
Even physical pain. So if they're like thrashing around, maybe they're aware that they're in distress, like that sort of stuff. Also, I mean, the warder bond specifically for the warder actually lends more sort of fortitude. Like they're more resistant to things and they're physically stronger and they can last longer with no sleep and no food. So I wonder if it goes both ways. Like I wonder if it makes them less susceptible to that kind of intervention because of the bond.
They can draw
because
from
she
their
looks
warders,
specifically for warders that's passed away that could do the opposite. That be more open to that.
They're more emotionally vulnerable.
Emotional, vulnerable.
Yes. Totally. Same note that you had your Verin guided the Wise Ones, Sorelia and Amis, into the decision to let her interrogate the Aes Sedai alone. I mean, what a boss. Verin just kicking goals here. She thinks to herself, better to behave as a novice than to be punished as one. Karuna could give that some consideration. Then she goes on about Alfor seems to think he has supporters in the tower. You'd be surprised who that is, Verin. Alviarin. That's who Rand is talking about. Because he got that letter from her.
Yeah.
Not a real supporter. To want to be frowned
that's
on.
why he thinks he has supporters.
She's talking about Rand specifically. She says Rand seems to think he has a supporter. And Rand, I think, for the most part, kind of did buy into that. Because, I mean, it was such a...
I don't think anymore. I think we got that.
No. This is a different time now, yes. Especially since that embassy also came from the tower. That was specifically the tower embassy. He knows there were two, Saladar and Tower, and he knows this was the tower one. So Alviarin's promises of clemency and stuff are out the window. Then I just said we'll have to keep an eye out for what Verin's instructions to the compelled Aes Sedai were. I think at least some of that is to actually swear fealty to Rand, because a lot of them do.
Yeah.
That was it. The last one was just the interpretation of the prophecies. I think it's specifically that line about him having to spill his blood on the rocks of Shalgul. The same lines that made Rand think he has to die there. I think, early in The Dragon Reborn, when they camped up in the mountains and he has that big argument with Moraine, he's talking about, like, I know I have to die. You don't have to sugarcoat it, which was pretty sad. But that is it from me. That's just the prologue of A Path of Daggers.
Well, there is a little, we haven't fully explored Moradin, if you want to.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's just I'm looking at these notes now, just going, it's mostly talking about the game now commonly called Stones.
Yes.
Which was previously called Shara, and one of the major pieces on the board is the Fisher, which is supposed to be a representation of the Dragon Reborn from a previous age. Not even Moradin can remember it. It's the guy with, like, a little man with a cloth over his eyes and holding his side where he has a wound and blood is dripping through his fingers. It's like, very, very exactly what happens to Rand on his journey.
But he had both arms,
like,
didn't
it's
he?
a call back to that.
The Fisher.
Yes, this one did. The Fisher did, yes.
So anyway, while Moradin's busy playing this game by himself or staring at it, thinking about it, he's stroking the mind traps. Is this when... I wonder if this is the moment where Moghedian feels it before she attacks.
Ooh,
Nynaeve.
I wonder.
This
But
is like
it's-
timeline-wise, timeline
close,
shenanigans.
but it's yeah.
He does say or think to himself that he does that absent-mindedly from time to time. I think it is mentioned that it happens fairly
It
often.
doesn't have to be this specific moment,
But
but
I
I
mean-
thought it would be cool if this was what was happening while she
would.
was feeling like he was washing her, because he was stroking that mind trap and going on a mad, insane tangent, and she might have felt that coming through. That's why she missed Nynaeve. It's his fault.
And he was a hair's breadth from crushing both of them. And that would be the death of Moghedian and Lanfear. Just like at the whim of this madman.
Sindane
Yes.
at this point, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we
Last
don't know. We
chance.
haven't read about her yet. We don't know she's back yet. But I think it's this book, isn't it?
Well, he's wearing the mind trap.
Yeah, but we don't know it's Sindane's. We don't know it's
No,
Lanfear
we
come
don't.
back.
We only know about
I think it's this
Moghedian.
book that we figure it out.
Okay.
This is
Anyway,
Nynaeve
I
gives to
could be talking
Moghedian.
absolute shit.
What's that
What?
for?
Does he rename Moghedian as well?
No.
No.
He makes a point of saying, "You are Moghedian. Who could replace you?"
That's right. Yes.
But he renames Osangar and Arangar, obviously. He renames Grandal
yeah.
when she's killed and resurrected. And he renames Lanfear. Sindane. Hessalam is what he calls Grandal.
All right.
If
Yeah, I've
lamb.
forgotten about that completely.
Me too.
But
I think that's
basically,
why I
this
landed.
this madman staring at the board is a metaphor for explaining that he's playing both sides. He's playing
Yes.
the dark side and the light side, and Rand is moving according to his wishes, and that's where he's giggling and laughing. He doesn't even bother stopping his laugh, and then that line when Moradin thinks it's very hard to lose a game when you played both sides of the board, and he's now laughing so hard that there are tears rolling down his face. And that's how you leave him, just this cackling man in a room with no doors or windows, staring at a board game.
Saw
laughing and
flying across his eyes.
Flying across his eyes,
Yeah, he's
thinking,
lost
"Ha
it
ha! Everyone is exactly where I want them." Like, I don't know, dude. But okay, so yeah, he's mad.
Okay, so then that is the end of the prologue.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I made like notes on it. So I didn't want to waste
You did.
them. Wasted
No,
notes.
right. Love it. You can talk more about him if you want.
Nah, there's really not much to say.
Nah.
That whole point of view is him thinking about that game and how the game works and the 33 pieces and the
Yeah.
fisher moves there. But then you could take the fisher, but then the game only begins. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, it's like 2
whatever,
pages.
dude.
Like it's nothing.
All right, fine.
All right, then let's go to chapter numero uno. To keep the bargain. Can we bargain on a summary from you, Vil?
Bargain on a very swift and unimpressive summary because I feel very unimpressed by this chapter. We
I
are
can hear the disdain in your voice.
none. Okay, no, I'm not. It's very nice. I love it. We are mid.
It's beautiful.
We're mid story. This is an unwrapped up event. They've gotten the bowl of the winds. It's now time to keep the bargain, which was listed out so nicely earlier, so I don't have to rattle on what the bargain was again. But before we get there, we have the wind. Notably, the weather's fucked, so our intro's fucked, and the wind is no longer blowing down the mountains of mist. It's coming all the way from Tremalking. That's why things are bad. That's a place, an island down. And then the wind's blowing east, and it's heading towards Ibadar. It's passing some Shanshan. It's telling us there's some invaders, and it goes all the way to the sea folk seeking their Quarramore. The wind's traveling east, no mist, no
The
mountains.
trade winds.
That's just a messed up wind. We are in a very rare
it's the trade
perspective,
winds.
Aviendha. I think the last time we had an Aviendha chapter, it was also mine, and that was her chapter with Rand in Sex Gate Scandal. I might
Sexy
be
glue.
Sexy Glue Scandal. Anyway, they are still
Nothing
in
scandalous about it.
yeah, they're still in the Tarasan Palace, and it opens up with Aviendha exclaiming she feels like the evil is watching her. And it's going to end right there. So, chapter done. Everything in between, you want to know it, go and read it. Okay, now I'll give you a little bit more than that. She's got this weird feeling that she's being watched. Yes, you are being watched by the golem. It's still there. But there's bouts of being worried about Alva, and she can't understand why. Because, I mean, she would have also killed his parents. They tree killers, and he's a little tree killer. And why should I care about this little tree killer? But the motherly instinct, that's not there yet. She's not a mother, but she is a very soft spot for him. But also says, you know what, Mac will find him. She sells herself off to that. Brigitte's still there, obviously, and she's trying to hurry them along. And she's also concerned about the little Alva missing. And Aviendha matches that off to, yeah, she likes ugly little men. So it makes sense that she likes Alva because he's an ugly little kid.
Ugly little tree killer.
Yep.
There's a very big moment of perving on Lan, just in how dangerous he is. Like Aiel perving. Like they look at him and they see the pinnacle of danger. They see the tip of the spear. That's Lan. And how she muses on that for quite a while. The most dangerous man alive. She also thinks that Nynaeve isn't at this point in time the best person to be listening to. She has been spotted giggling to herself and acting a little bit love-struck weird since the Lan incident. There's some reflections on Brigitte being the badass warder that she is. And it ties in, and I'm trying to understand this little bit of banter that happened there, where Brigitte mentions something about fond and kittens. And I think it's stuff that came out between Aviendha and Elayne in becoming closer, but that would shame Aviendha if it ever came out. But this doesn't make sense to me.
It's Aiel bullshit. Don't worry about it.
But anyway, this gets her to the point of completely blushing and getting embarrassed and stopping. And then Nynaeve, like, what the hell are you stopping for? Get moving. And she gets a 1-2 from Nynaeve. Now,
Jab, jab.
Yeah, they are now faced, or they meet up now eventually with Teslin, not to be confused with Tylen. And there's a bit of a standoff and a face-off there because Teslin is with the other sister, Jolene, if you remember, and they are Tower loyalists? Question mark.
They're from the tower.
Yeah, they're from the tower.
Yeah.
But
That's the most we can say.
it is not the most friendly exchange. There's a lot of tension in the room. There's a lot of tension. And at one point, Elayne decides to step in and slander is thrown around. Summer hams are mentioned. There's
those
Lan.
summer hams.
Here's Elayne using a summer ham. He's even like, he pipes up his head. He's like, raises his eyes a bit there, startled, one would almost say, and amused at the comments that's being flown. But Elayne really takes charge in these high, level situations, which is cool to see. Tower is not happy with the influence now that all these channeling women have their say. So that is really ruffling the feathers of Teslin. Now, Nynaeve doesn't just want to leave them because they eventually say, like, look, we're going to let you do your thing, but, a reckoning is coming for you eventually. But they're not going to get in their way, is kind of the agreement. And Nynaeve wants to part ways with them with a friendly warning as well, like, hey, Golem, Mogideon, all these things are real, and they take that like Black Aja as well, laughing it off, and you just worry about how you're gonna be back in whites as soon as the towers deals with you. And she sniffs as she walks past Aviendha, the wilder wisdom woman. Anyway, Lan coughs and makes like, okay, cool, time to go. They are still golems and black archer and all these things that you're warning them about is still around here. So let's mosey on.
Yes.
So the warders now heard their Aes Sedais, and the Aes Sedais know that they're being herded, so they take their time. And they talk about dresses, and they stop at the shops, and it's just a comical scene. Talk about an Illuminator refugee that's putting on a show that night. Could this be a Ludra? Yes, it is. And then there's a lot of dress talk. I switched off. There's dress talk and there's scowling, and then a lot in this whole theme, Aviendha is feeling that she's become soft and she needs to get out of the wetlanders because she's going to be a sop crying, and she already recognizes that she's talking about dresses and liking the cut of her riding dress. She's wearing a riding dress, an Aiel woman. So it's something to think about. They finally reach the stable doors of the palace yard, where I suppose they're going to get their horses and gateway out of here, only to be met with the other faction of channeling women who have opinions, the sea folk, under the guidance of Renale Den Cairhien Bluey, that now wants to buy the bargain. We made the bargain. You must pay. It's time to pay the bargain. The bargain needs to be handled, and Nynaeve just doesn't even want to deal with it. She just sniffs and wants to walk off, do her best to get away, but it's no getting away from this. And it gets to the point of insults being thrown, and you've got Aes Sedai, big tower, main tower, fake tower. You've got rebel Aes Sedai. You have kinswoman who can channel, and you've got Windfinders, and everyone has an opinion, and especially the Windfinders over the kinswoman, because this is now wilder politics. I don't understand any of it, but there's a lot of shouting and there's a lot of cursing, and also now the kinswoman have brought the prisoners along with them that have been captured, the Black Archer, Ispan, and is it Christian? And they also look, we don't want to hold these women. We feel uncomfortable holding these women.
Do they have both of them? Or is it just Ispan?
I thought there was two.
I think it's just one.
Yeah, they've got Ispan. Christian gets mentioned.
Christian is the kinswoman who is shielding Ispan.
Okay, all right, that makes more sense.
I think could be a good old callback.
Either way,
it is,
she's not happy that she's got to shield Ispan. It seems wrong. But anyway, Nynaeve is annoyed with this. Aviendha is just observing how Elayne handles Mirror trying to get out of her duties. Everyone's trying to get out of something. And the bargain, the seagulls and the bargain. So the Windfinders are now being referred to at this point as the seagulls, because when they see that bowl in the wrapped up things, and Mirror gets the bowl now eventually, they're like, mine. It's chaos. They just want to get their hands on that bowl. And this is where it's screaming and fighting and screaming insults. And all of a sudden, Saidar's being embraced by all the women. And it almost gets to the point of a battle where Nynaeve does the big loud voice, enough. And she starts pointing at the Windfinders and tells them that their crummy deal has got things that they got to still commit to. So shut the hell up. You'll get your bloody bowl. But first, you'll fix the weather. And pointing to Mirror and the Aes Sedai. And she just puts everyone back in their boxes, including the kin. And she's then, all right, time to move. Aviendha flinches then when Elayne sort of grabs her and look, this has been enough drama for one day. Let's move along. And then again, reflecting that she's going to be a milk-hearted wetlander soon now, that she's even flinching when people touches her arm, when all of this, because it's a heightened emotional state. Women are arguing and fighting. Now she's flinching. What have Aviendha become? She's not a maiden anymore. We're doing gateways now. Aviendha does a bit of reflecting back to her sex gate that she made, but she can't remember how to make it. And there's a lot of gateway envy in this stage by Aviendha. But they have gateways opened, which is somewhere where there's farmlands dotted through. So I assume this is they're going to the farm as they have arranged. That was also carefully chosen and not spoken about specifically for Black Arja and all the evils not to be able to follow them to where they're going to next. So no one knows about this plan except Nynaeve, Elayne, and Aviendha, the location of where they going to.
And the kin.
And the kin, of course. And with all of this going back on, she's now not through the gateway yet, and Nynaeve and Elayne, they've gone through. She's sort of rear guard, still getting made, and there's some warders, and she looks up at the windows where there shouldn't be someone, and behind the window, sort of over the towers, she spots this man that is just walking in the sun behind him, and all of a sudden she's like, oh God, it's him. It's the golem. And she sends one of the Athaemir and says, like, task her with a message, which is code, which I assume they must have had beforehand spoken about. And
I don't think they had a code. She was sort of grasping at, like, what can I say to impress upon her the danger without sending these guys into a tizzy? She had just sort of like come up.
Yeah, because she couldn't get the kin now, because it's a big progression of people. Like this is not the time for chaos when people are weaving razor blades and next minute kinswoman pushing kinswoman, slicing in half, and Ispan gets beheaded.
And Windfinders.
It's a whole lot of nonsense. So the code is enemies.
It's a Windfinder she sends, isn't it?
Yeah, she sends a note, an Athaemir. It doesn't say Windfinder. Yes.
There are only Windfinders here.
Okay, then it is a Windfinder.
There's 20 Athaemir channelers with them.
Anyway, the message is enemy comes when you least expect it. Well, they have a lot of enemies, but anyway, go for it. And Aviendha is scared. She knows this thing is dangerous. She's for the first time grateful for wetlanders with swords being around her.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. This is where I was like, okay, golem level is very high. Like, she's glad for swords and warders around her. And then she draws in Saidar as much as she can. Not sure why, because she can't do a thing to it.
She's scared.
Yeah.
She's whatever. She's
as
just
comfort.
Getting on Uber defense. Yeah,
make the ground explode.
I'm going to go out fighting.
Yeah, and that is when you expect the ground to explode, and it's the end of the chapter. It stops right there.
And
so
she goes, no, goodbye. Yoink.
A lot of politicking, a lot of screaming, a lot of
There's a bit there.
Thingy things.
A lot of shuffling of women through gateways.
I don't know if you guys have read ahead, but strap in. This ride through the countryside from after the gateway to the farm is only this dynamic.
All right.
Only that.
So for me,
terrible spoilers. The next chapter, unweaving, and then the symbol of the Forsaken. So I hope the next chapter is going to be a little bit
something interesting happens.
Exciting. Thanks, Moritz.
What I will say is, remember when I had that flashback to a scene of the golem staring through the wrought iron window, when Matt's looking back at the window and there's a pool of blood on the floor somehow, but why would a golem be next to a pool of blood, would be inside him, that sort of stuff. That all plays out in the next chapter.
All right. Okay, good to know. Finally have closure.
Yes. And did you have anything to say about this chapter, Joseph?
Not at all.
No. Can we move on?
All I'd like to say is that my favorite moment is not from this chapter.
Would you be surprised if I told you I had about 15 notes on this chapter?
No, I would not be. Not in the least. Rattle them off, Moritz.
Here we go. Let's start rattling. The Amayar. So remember when the wind is blowing across Tremel King and there's brief mention of the Amayar people that live there? Jody, you were gesturing. Our podcast listeners couldn't see your gesture of like holding your hand up as if there were a large crystal sphere in it. So the other Kuden Call is on Tremel King. There's one outside Cairhien and there's one on that island. The Amayar are a peaceful native people on the island of Tremel King. They follow a peaceful doctrine known as the Waterway, similar to the Way of the Leaf, but not quite as pacifistic. The Amayar have a strong belief that reality is in fact not real, but only a passageway to another existence. It is not known in the wider world, but the Amayar are the craftsmen of the highly valued seafolk porcelain. So whenever you hear people talk about seafolk, and they are not seafolk, to be clear.
No.
They formed during the breaking of the world, and when the female statue of the Kudenkal melted during the cleansing of Sidin, the Amayar interpreted this as the end of the time of illusion and committed mass suicide.
Wow. So Nynaeve used the gateway key or the statue key and channeling the power so much that it melted the statue on the island in Tremalking. Yes. And those folks all jumped into the volcano after that.
I can't remember how they did it, but yes, they all killed themselves.
Righty,
an entire people.
Okay. Now
Women
this
and
people,
children, the works.
Their bone china that they make, their porcelain, is as good as it is because of all the bones, human bones that they grind up on their island. Because they actually cannibalistic people that live around like this very volcano.
They actually farm. They farm with goats and stuff.
Yeah, and the bones for the goats, especially for the porcelain. Anything
and they
with
eat
bones.
People, obviously.
Yes. And they don't eat the bones because they need that for the porcelain. Yeah. They're them, just to be clear.
Yeah. Here we have mention of, like, as the wind is blowing past the Seanchan ships, there was a multitude of streaming banners, like the portents of a storm. Okay, RJ, storm, linked to the Seanchan, got it. And then of the wind itself, later he goes, not yet the storm, but a harbinger of storms. Okay, thank you. Got it. The Seanchan of the storm, got it, yes.
We were asking that very question, so don't be annoyed when he answers it.
No, true. Yeah. It's cool that Aviendha can sense when someone watches her, like she gets an itch between her shoulder blades, and she's correct. Like she gets it both times, and the second time is when she looks around and she sees it is the golem standing up on a tall tower with the sun directly behind him, so she can hardly make him out. But she senses that first, and then sees him. It's cool how when there is mention of Nynaeve trying to keep a lid on her temper when Lan is around. Willie, like you said, Aviendha is sort of like fangirling out on Lan. She thinks to herself, had death been a man, she would have been him. It's cool. They think, I don't know if it's an Aiel thing or a maiden thing, but they think death is a woman. And then if it was a man, it would be Lan.
Yeah. All right. What's the other line from there? Like, she had no dangerous men in her life, but none like Elayne. No, maar niks soos die Elayne ouetjie.
Yeah.
He's trouble.
Speaking of trouble, Aviendha is like a hair's breadth away from like beating up Teslin. Like she's having to be like held back. Yes. But Teslin on the surface is very antagonistic towards Elayne and Nynaeve, but we know she is the one that slipped the letter into Matt's coat to warn the girls about being careful. That wasn't a threat, it was a genuine warning. And she is also the one that later, after Matt helps them, like really truthfully thanks Matt and sends him a letter from the tower and all that sort of stuff. Like she actually is totally redeemed in the eyes of the reader anyway. Because she's the really prickly, stuffy red with the high-necked dress and like stickler for the law,
prim and
sent
proper,
there by Elida.
read by the rule. It's she's
exactly.
And that's what I do like is like she says, this is where I stand with you, but I'm not standing in your way. So
yes,
just note, I'll be switching you in the tower in 6 months.
When you're in the whites, you'll be bringing dinner to my room, and I will be making you feel every moment of that shame. Teslin also doesn't know anything about a golem. She's 130 years old. So I wonder if there are any Aes Sedai. I mean, we know that none of them here in these scenes in Ibu Dar know anything about a golem. But I wonder if Cadsuane knows anything, or Moraine, or Verin, some of our old sort of stalwart knowledgeable Aes Sedai. I wonder if they know anything about a golem. Just interesting thought. Nynaeve thinks to herself that Teslin might be ready to turn on Elida. Well read, Nynaeve. She sort of already has by withholding information from Ibudar. So we were talking sort of skirting around the fact that she was sent there from the tower by Elida, but sort of also, I think, was she the one that was demoted? She used to be a sitter and now she's been sent away. Like, it's pretty harsh treatment of Teslin.
It was enough of a motive for her not to report any of the real happenings in
Yes. She and Jolene were keeping everything to themselves.
No, you know what? Let's just hold on and let's just watch this, because we're not 100% sure about this woman's motive, and it was really hard for her as a raid to be in that position. But it all stems from a demotion. Like, whoa, why did you do such an irrational thing? It was for something stupid.
Also shitty. It was nothing to do with Teslin. It was to show the rest of the Red Arja that none of them are above her wrath, just because she used to be a red. So she picked on a good red.
Yeah, it was like, I'm just going to point one out. Yeah.
Yes, and make an example of her. Just picked.
And so happy that she did. Happy that she'd done that, because it set up a massive thing over there.
Mm-hmm. Then there was an awesome interaction between Birgitte, Lan, Elayne, and Nynaeve. So the two warders and the two Aes Sedai. Birgitte makes a comment and they get glares from the two Aes Sedai, but the glares have zero effect on them. In fact, Birgitte is grinning and Lan shrugs. He's like, oh. And then eventually, like, Nynaeve and Elayne, they actually give over and they listen to them. Like, they're trying to herd them, like you were saying, Willie. And when they shoot glares at them, Birgitte is like openly grinning and Lan's just shrugging, like, okay, if you want to glare at us, glare away.
Glare while we walk.
Yes. Okay, walk and glare. Elayne and Nynaeve again with the gifts. Like, they've got chests full of gifts, they're racking up quite a collection. No wonder they're into fashion. They're getting dresses and jewelry from the Panarch of Tenchiko to now the Queen of Ibudar. Non-stop gift giving. And this is also pretty funny. Like, Aviendha's true worry, the thing that at least she's saying to herself and to the reader is her true concern, is the fact that she's enjoying all this talk about the silk and the lace and stuff. And that's all the stuff you said, Villy, about her becoming soft. And that's what she's genuinely distressed about. Elayne can sense she's distressed about something, and it's about how soft she's becoming. Then I also chuckled when Aviendha calls back to the promise she had made Matt to look after the Aes Sedai, which is funny because Matt had included Aviendha in the women that needed protecting. Remember, Matt talked to Lan and Birgitte and said, look after the women, and Aviendha goes, sure, I will. He's like, huh? Okay. And she still references it here. Mention here of Sumiko matching the Aes Sedai stare for stare. Again, like, there's multiple references in the chapters to come as well. Robert Jordan really establishing in us the sense that Sumiko is not standing down for the Aes Sedai anymore. And that it was actually a conversation that Nynaeve was having with her in the boat at one point that Matt had observed was about Sumiko and the kin having backbone. Like, Nynaeve is actively trying to teach the kin to stand up for themselves. Which is probably because of her own weird relationship with the Aes Sedai, having originally hated them and then joined their ranks. She's being a wilder, and she's also generally just in favor of women being powerful and, standing up for themselves. So it makes sense that would come from Nynaeve. She can't handle all this, like, fawning and dropping of eyes around the Aes Sedai. She hates it. And then my last note, I had already mentioned about Aviendha looking up to the wrought iron windows thinking anyone could be watching. Someone is watching. It's not the golem yet. That is it. Those are my notes. We did a thing. We did a podcast.
We did.
Now, I have last things to say about that very
final thoughts,
final notes,
wordy chapter. It's like, what you said, like, what am I supposed to learn out of this chapter? And maybe a thing to look out for. We've got different factions of matriarchal systems that are now with power, rules, and structure coming into play that have to now start working together. And a new point.
And they don't gel.
They don't gel. There's conflict, and all of them, although some of them always thought they were below, Nynaeve is actively trying to push the kin to elevate them. So now is
Yeah.
this elevation going to cause conflict? But they need all of these channels to
Yes.
be elevated, not to be dumbed down. They need to be able. So this is
Yes.
like, yes, we've got to make you fight, but therefore you will also infight. So
Totally.
damned if you do, damned
And
if you
then-
don't.
It's a lose situation because the kin are sort of differential to the Aes Sedai all the time, and Nynaeve hates that. Everyone does. The Windfinders are hating on the Aes Sedai. They think that they are like not coming through with the bargain and everything. And then when they shoot daggers at the Aes Sedai, the kin are like, "Hey, don't talk to the Aes Sedai that way." And then the kin are getting their backs up at the Windfinders. And then the Aes Sedai are sort of trying to play it cool, but they are
It's
actually
just going to be a
party.
shit show for the whole book. I can smell it already. I think I've blocked it out.
For at least the next 2 chapters, Willie. Strap in, because I asked myself the same question after both of these. In both this chapter and the next one, there are little interesting things that happen around the weaving of the gateway and stuff. And we get a bit of insight to Aviendha's state of mind. You notice that she's wearing a riding dress. She rides a horse in the coming chapters. Like, she is definitely becoming wetlanderish. Her fears are somewhat grounded in reality. But yes, I think there's going to be a lot of the setting up of the relationships between these people, because the kin are going to feature for quite a long time. They go to Cairhien with Elayne, and they spend time there, like all the way through Crown of Swords and on. The Windfinders, I remember the Atha and Mia generally just being sort of like an irritant for the remainder of the story. After they use the Bowl of the Winds, they're just annoying, and it's because of all these bad deals that everyone's made with them. So I don't know necessarily whether that is going to be exciting to read or anything, but I think this chapter and the next couple are setting up those relationships.
I definitely feel like there's a reason that they tend to be on their boats, on the ships in the water. Like, they don't get along well with everyone. Like, they just all about their haggling and their deal, and they sort of get back on the open water where you can take the daddies out and just sail, because that's where freedom is.
Or is the converse true? They are bad with other people because they're on the boats so much and spending so little time with other nations and stuff.
That's
Who knows?
Chicken egg things.
Chicken and egg. Now, in between all that sort of political shifting and social undertones, and also don't forget meetings in the Black Hills and Verin's badassery in the Aiel camp outside Cairhien, did you guys pick a favorite moment?
Sure did.
I just realized that I always ask you if you did. Every single episode, for 75 episodes, I've asked if you have. And I mean, sometimes you haven't, but you always do when we need to.
Yeah, like, have I picked one while I was making notes before this recording? No, never.
Okay.
I listen to, I have a conversation, and during the podcast recording, something sticks out, and I go, yeah, that's
Jody,
the coolest.
the brief is summarize your chapters, pick a favorite moment. That's the brief. That's what we got.
You can't tell me what to do. I'm my own man.
Also, we've come this far. Seems to work all right. So, Joe, before you forget what it is, can you tell us what your favorite moment that you picked during this recording is?
I liked meeting Agelmar again. I liked the Black Hills scenario. I liked getting to know the Borderlanders. Like, oh, he has Candor, he has Arafel, like people we haven't heard about before. And then the old school's back, and Tenobia, she's a Seldaean, she's related to that guy and that girl. Clearly.
Yes.
So it was cool. Like, I like that, how everyone thinks Seldaeans are loco.
Yes, and they are. Yeah, it was very cool, especially Lord Agelmar. Like, just how many weapons he has, how he's also just death waiting to be unleashed, and how King Isar and Agelmar are both fans of poetry and stuff. That's really cool shit. Love those.
That's a whole cool cultural. Love those northern. Not just the Borderlanders in general. Very cool.
You said northern.
How about you, Vil?
You might have noticed the complete lack of input when you went through the little breakaway chapter there with Moradin. Because that whole chapter is my favorite moment. His insanity is amazing.
He's mad as a hat,
He has a monologue with himself playing stones, and laughing maniacally as the saw drifts through his eyes,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to win because I'm playing against myself. It's so fucking good. I know what I'm going to do.
Totally.
Beautiful. Like just, and
Dig it.
Chef's
just
kiss.
like those two. It's like, I want to say he's rubbing his balls, but it's the mind traps. It's like,
Well, like truck nuts
truck
around
nuts.
his neck.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah. Oh man, it's set. And again, you don't know who Moradin is. You don't know at the stage if you're reading it. Just like this.
No, but
this,
you do, Havel.
Yeah, you know. I do. Yes,
With your black shadow heart.
do remember all of this. My lord, he's there. It's fantastic. Just that whole chapter is just so great. I loved it.
He is an interesting character. He's an interesting cat. I like the sort of wild card. I mean, helping Rand basically kill Samael, right? Like saving Rand's life. The series could have ended at the end of A Crown of Swords as Rand falls to his death in a collapsing building, you know. But here's Moradin saving the day.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite moment is Verin being an absolute fucking boss. How she manipulated Amis and Sorelia, her compulsion plan that could result in an Aes Sedai dying and not caring about it, her notebook cipher, and just generally what a rogue agent she is, playing it meek but secretly wishing that Catelyn would have been killed, and her memory of smiling at a man once who seemed to enjoy her smile, who then later tried to kill her with a dagger, but her smile was the last thing he ever saw.
Great. Now,
Verin.
that was going to be my favorite moment, the whole Verin showing her hand moment. But I knew that's one of you were going to pick it. And secondly,
that's what I thought as well.
Right after
I knew
that,
someone was going
I
to
read that little section of Moradin. I was like, oh no, this is just too
yes,
juicy.
my Dark Lord. Here
Yes. Oh.
Phil, you also hinted at my honorable mention. So pull your nose out of our coats, you summer ham, and be glad we do not choose to take issue with you supporting a usurper on the Averland seat.
Yeah, I love that line.
And then Aviendha thinks to her, nose in our coats? Summer ham? Like, just completely perplexed. Doesn't even recognize that it's supposed to be a metaphorical insult, you know? Like, just so lost.
Now, add a last minute note for something that I'm going to look out and see if it's in the annoyance that there's another option or in character development. Aviendha not getting swooped up in dresses and all of that, but this is a tactic of her deliberately in becoming accustomed with Rand's upbringing, the wetlander ways. And she's feeling that she's becoming soft because she's doing it. She's Aiel. That's too hard for her to say no. Not too hard for her. She's too hard a person to not be able to say, I don't wear this dress. I mean, the wise ones couldn't fight her almost out of a cut and saw and into a wise one's dress. Took forever.
Wise one's dress, yeah.
Yeah, now so for me, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and look out for, is this her becoming a better wife for Rand? Like, learning his way.
I would tweak that theory for myself and not necessarily focus on her being something for Rand, but I think she's trying to get closer to Elayne. I think she's trying to understand Elayne, sort of live herself into how it's going to be with her, first sister or eventually sister wife.
Yeah,
they are super close.
Yeah,
in the chapters coming as well, they're always chatting, and in one of the earlier books, every night they would stay up talking and tell each other the secret they'd never told anyone else before. So, like, they are quite aggressively building a very strong relationship and quite actively working on it.
That is where that little where she blushes is when I think about these secrets that's coming out, and somehow one of them got to Birgitte, who also warrior woman, sees Aviendha warrior woman, recognizes channel a warrior woman that can use the stabby bits very well, and then finding out she likes small kittens fondly, little cute meowy purry ones. She wants to stroke them and pet them and love them. So anyway, we'll I'm definitely keeping an eye on that.
Now, we've got one listener favorite moment from someone that was called out explicitly on this podcast.
Was I?
By Jody. So from number one fan Adrian, on her triumphant return, her favorite moment is Verin's reveal that she has a list of what shames wetlanders most to give to Sorrelier when they are alone. Oh, she is tricksy, she is. But that is cool, like Verin, like ready to like hand over, dish the dirt. Here, Sorrelier, yeah, take this list. This is really what's going to shame them. Which is just, again,
We ask the question.
Verin and her lists say.
Loves a list.
How does Verin get in, like, to get questioning? Because she's got little lists and she's got little things, and this will help you, and you will help me. Therefore, it will work.
Mm-hmm. You won't even know that you're helping me. I'm just going to butter you up, much like I rub butter all over myself. Here's some butter for you.
That's how she slips through all the little gaps. She's all bucked up.
Physically slipping through. Adrian had two honorable mentions as well. The first being my girl Tenobia, quote unquote, arranging Ethaniel's marriage to Tenobia's uncle, who just happened to be there right under her nose, the little strategist. But if I recall correctly, she did end up marrying him. So like you said, Joe, thanks to a listener writing in, Adrian, we know that, yes, Ethaniel does in fact marry Tenobia's uncle that she brought to the meeting. And then Adrian's last honorable mention is Aviendha's feelings for Oliver, which she found really poignant, which is true. So, to our listeners, send in your poignant moments, your favorites, your shower thoughts, your theories, your corrections for all the mistakes we've made. And please, for the love of God, answers to the many, many questions that we ask. You can do that by tweeting us at Blood and Ash Pod or visiting our website, which is www.bloodandashespodcast.com. There you can find all kinds of things like a link to our store where you can buy some t-shirts. You can leave a voice note, which we could play on the show, which I encourage everyone to do because those are always fun. And you can also find in the episode description below links to our Discord and other social media channels where you can reach us. Once you've done all of that, you can read and prepare for our next episode of the podcast. So next time on Blood and Ashes, we will cover chapter 2 through to the end of chapter 5. Jody's taking a very long time to count a very small number of fingers.
Yeah, because you didn't start at 1, you started at 2, and that threw me off.
Yeah, that's 4 chapters. Chapter 2 is called Unweaving, then it's A Pleasant Ride, then A Quiet Place, and chapter 5 is The Breaking Storm. Hopefully we finally see the storm of Nynaeve's breaking. But until we do that, I will say unto thee, sleep well and wake.
Until the storm.
Until the storm.